Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols Plus, a PlayStation podcast supplement. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined today by a very special group of people. Special mentally, maybe, but special in other ways too. I don't know if we've ever had this particular group on Sacred Symbols Plus before, but maybe we have. Someone can write in, some weird historian of the show.
James Solar.
There are a few out there that are doing all sorts of things. So a few people have been messaging me and showing me documents of things they've been doing and stuff. It's a lot of autism, I think, in the, you understand. As the guy who used to play NHL 94 and hand keep all of the stats for many years in a notebook. It's good to be here with everyone, though. We're here to talk about Expedition 33. Let's go around the horn and introduce everyone. Matty, good to see you. You're drinking an enormous...
Yes.
Is that a gallon? That's a half gallon, maybe?
This is a gallon.
This
is a gallon, yeah.
And how many of these you drink every day? You drink one of those a day?
I try to.
Yeah,
I don't always succeed. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, also, you got to think, like, if I have I'm a big seltzer guy, so if I have a couple cans of seltzer, it's usually still, decent amount full by the end of the day. But yeah, I've been doing gallon of water a day or close to it for few years now. I used to carry around like a plastic, people remember on Duke, like a plastic, almost pink kind of gallon jug until my wife got me a more masculine one.
More masculine. Wow. Yeah. She wants to man you up a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, it seemed. She was like,
2 of these a day. Or
that
so.
Works too.
Yeah.
As long as you're drinking water, right?
Yeah, definitely. I just refill this over and over again for several days and then I'll get another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I love the bottles. I've said before, these are podcasting bottles. The reason that I came to like smart water in my old career in media many, many years ago is because you can't make water bottle noises with it. I'm squeezing for people that are listening. I'm squeezing. If you would squeeze a normal water bottle, it would be you can't do it.
Yeah.
With the smart water. It can't be done.
See, my problem is when I get in this chair and I get into work mode, I sometimes don't get up for a while. So just having a gallon next to me means I'm at least, putting the water in, because I'll finish the glass and just like leave the glass empty for another like 6 hours.
Right.
That's how I'll get. So having the gallon is also just a little preventative measure against myself.
Well, I'm glad you're hydrated. I'm glad you're here.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes, it was a struggle to get in here, as we know. So
yeah, it took us about a half an hour to get the show going because Matty was having a camera issue. He's on an older camera, I guess now, which is fine.
No, I'm on my usual camera, but it just, when I plugged in the webcam and it worked, I was like, I tried, because it didn't work at first, so I tried a different USB slot. And then that worked. And
that always is the different USB slot for some reason does the trick.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so I switched this camera over and it worked. I was like, all right, bro. Like, I was like, whatever, man. Like just 30 minutes, I'll never get back.
There is another. I hate computers. I hate technology. I wish the Chinese would just launch a series of EMPs over the United States and fry all of our electronics. But until that day comes, because there's the other thing too with the USB ports, which is often changing them works. But then there's that shit where it only works in a single. You have like 6 USB ports, but the thing will only work in like USB port 4. Mm-hmm. I've had that happen many times in my life too. Like
technically, this camera is only USB like 3.2 and up, and or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'll use it for that. And then this is in like I think just a normal 3 or a 2. I don't know at this point, but I'm like, I'm playing with fire right now, so we'll see how it ends up going.
I hate technology; it's ruined everything.
Same. Yeah. On
that note, Bradley Ellis.
Hi.
As Dagan likes to say, Bradley, if you're nasty.
That's right. Yeah.
Little Janet Jackson reference. How are you today, my friend? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Happy we have technology still. I'm happy the Chinese have not EMP'd us.
Yeah, you'll get it first.
We'll be out of a job. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But, although I live like not so far from Washington, D.C., so we've thought about it. Like I'm 2 hours southwest of Washington, D.C., and if Washington, D.C. is nuked, the jet stream will bring it will just go up towards New England. So actually, like they could nuke Washington, D.C., and I don't think we would get the radiation at all here.
Yeah. Well, Gene would be dead, but fuck him. Whatever. I think I'd be okay if LA got hit from a nuke as well.
Yeah.
I'm far enough.
They have to find someone in the wreckage, brother.
I know. Batman.
Yeah. The best character.
Bane
ever. That rendition of Bane is the best.
Hold on a second, Colin. I gotta see these Matty's magic cards he's got going on here.
Okay. Oh, you noticed, Brad.
Of course I noticed.
Dude, I got my girl.
And he got a little Sly Cooper.
Lightning, of course.
Ooh,
This is the starter bundle. Yeah, bro. I ripped like 30 packs last night.
Wow. Holy
Wait,
moly.
Lightning from Final Fantasy?
Yeah, these are
they're
Final
doing
Fantasy
a
Magic
collab,
cards.
and so I got the booster. And dude, these cards are fucking amazing. There's one card in here. If I were
So you
to show
you
one off-
opened all of those? You opened them all and then went through them?
Oh yeah.
What do you do with all these cards?
So I haven't really ripped packs in a while, but when I used to do it, was like Dragon Ball, and I like would either go to a local like card shop and just play analog style, or I just liked the art, so I would just collect them and put them in binders. And so with Final Fantasy, I was, it's funny, you'd think I leap for the Fallout Magic the Gathering cards. Now I'm going to do that. But I'm kind of in that binder mode. Like I'm just kind of collecting, because I don't have the time right now, unfortunately, to go to a card shop every week like I used to. It's something I want to get back into, but that's why I got them. They're really expensive, but the art is so nice, dude.
Yeah,
like they did an amazing job with it. So I wanted to rip some packs and did that last night. It was a good time. But
yeah, I got my commander deck right here as well.
Oh, dude, those are so expensive. I got the.
There's a Terra one, Colin.
I got the starter set.
Oh, cool.
I feel like I kind of made a mistake.
Yeah, I have that too.
I should have got the commander decks.
Did you guys go to Target and have to fight children for them?
No, Amazon.
Yeah, I was gonna say I went through Amazon.
You're not going to fight children. You're going to fight millennials.
Yeah. Scalpers and flippers. Like the one you got, Brad, like those commander decks, because I guess they have my friend who got some packs as well told me there's like guarantee foils in them or something like that. And so I guess everyone's chasing those commander decks because they have those. So like if you had like all 4 of them, they're like $800 on eBay.
Wow.
Yeah, like they're going for a lot. So hey, bro, if you ever need a little quick cash, you're sitting on some stacks right there.
Yeah, they have a bunch of Final Fantasy 6 cards and stuff. Colin 4, I assume as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
The card collecting is. Oh yeah.
It was one of my topics on Constellation. I love trading cards, card games. I always have.
14.
Oh, okay. I was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, me and Dagan were talking about these last week.
There's
awesome.
If you open some of these packs too, dude, they're like they have some deep cuts of like references. Like it's very impressive. Like they clearly had the whole art team like play these games and just get every little bit out of it that they could. It's really cool. It's not just the iconic things like, oh, Kefka. It's like really deep cuts. So
yeah, they had like the Final Fantasy 11 super boss on there and shit.
Yeah, like I was just so surprised they had so much 11 in there. They have a ton of 14, of course.
Yeah.
Like even like games I hadn't played in the series, like I was like, oh, Final Fantasy 2. Like a bunch of foils for that.
That's the one game I still haven't beaten yet that I need to beat.
I still have a little bit of work to do. Like 1 through 4 or 1 through 5 is mainly my.
Oh,
my
1 through 5.
lift.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 is your favorite, right, Colin?
6.
Oh, I thought 4 was your favorite. Okay.
4 is my second favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
4 is the one I'm most interested in because I did play an hour of that when the Pixel remaster came out. I was like, damn, I kind of like where this is going. Playing as the Dark Knight to open things up.
Yeah, 4 is great, dude.
Yeah, 4 is sick. 6, 4, 7, 9, 16.
True. Yeah.
9's my favorite. So they have a card that's called You're Not Alone. And it's from that scene. I was just like, damn, dude, this is awesome. Like they got all the big and small moments. It's cool.
Well, go pick those up from your Gen X and Millennial competition.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fist fight,
maybe.
Yeah.
There's so many things to buy. Like I can't even keep up with all these things that people are into.
Yeah.
Just focus on the Robot Masters, Colin.
That's all I am focused on.
Yeah.
That's all I've ever been focused on, to be honest. All right, guys, I brought you here. There was actually supposed to be 4 of us. So just to give everyone a little context, because everyone's probably like, it's a little deja vu-ish. Although we've been transparent that we were going to do this on Sacred Symbols. Expedition 33, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, released April 24th earlier this year from Sandfall, the French studio, their first game, published by Kepler, which is Kepler's. I actually have a couple people that I know there, and they are becoming an interesting publisher of games to keep an eye out for. I'm pretty sure, published Sifu.
Oh,
which was like the
cool game.
Yeah, like I think Slow Clap self-published it on certain platforms, and then they got involved with Sifu, and then Chia. But where I became really familiar with them in the first game of theirs I bought actually was last year, although I didn't play it very much because I didn't like it as much as I thought I was. It was Pacific Drive. And ever since then, I've been kind of interested in them because they
did Scorn.
Scorn, exactly, which I think later, that was an Xbox game at first, and I think that later they might have even published the PlayStation version. I never played it.
Cat Quest 3.
And they're working with a lot of different companies. They're actually working with Slow Clap again on that rematch game.
This game looks great too. Yeah.
So cool publisher for people to keep an eye out if they want to. I like what they're doing, and they're located in Great Britain, so just across the channel from France. So this game came out. People really loved it. What'd you say? I'm sorry, Matty.
I said you hate to hear it.
You hate to hear it.
And so we did a Spoilercast review discussion on this already, but this is one of those games that pretty much everyone or most people in the company have played or are playing. So the first one was what? Dustin, Micah, and who? Hogue, right. And so that went live, and we always promised we were going to do another one because I just think there were more people interested. So Gene was originally supposed to be the fourth on this episode, but he canceled late last night because of work issues. So it's just going to be the three of us, but just another way for us to talk about this game we really enjoyed. And I really enjoyed. I don't want to speak for everyone else.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
And also just a different sort of opinion. So I don't know how redundant, I guess is what I'm saying, this is going to be compared to the last episode because I didn't listen to it because I didn't want to listen to it. And then part of me is like, well, you should figure out different ways to talk about it. But I just feel like I would just kind of, poison the well, as it were.
Yeah, just be ourselves. We're good.
Right. So we're going to go into the game, talk about playing it, talk about experiencing it, talk about the story and the characters, whatever we want to talk about. We can spend as much or as little time on it as we want. But I just wanted to put that into context for everyone in case they're wondering. We've done this in the past, I think, with something else. Maybe it was Final Fantasy VII.
We did Final Fantasy Rebirth, yeah.
I think you guys also did it with Last of Us Part 2, or you did that in 2 parts.
Oh yeah, we did The Last of Us Part 2. I think actually 3 or 4 episodes ultimately because when it first came out, we did 2 back to back because people really were upset with the first Spoilercast.
That's funny.
I do vaguely remember that.
And so we did a second one. They weren't upset. They were upset that we didn't talk about a bunch of things. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. We'll do that. And then of course it all culminated more recently in the Knockback episode that was 7 hours long. I'm never covering The Last of Us Part 2 again. That's not true. I'm sure we'll do something.
Yeah, you'll be back.
I mean, I really don't know what else there is to say. I became a real.
Yeah, you've done enough.
It's not often that I play a game the way I played The Last of Us Part 2 this last time, which is I took like 20,000 words of notes or something. Like it was like
20,000.
Yeah, it was like a complete. Shit. It was 30 pages we went through. I mean, that's what it took so long. So
you should have made like a video essay. You did all that work.
Yeah, then I have to write a script, and then someone's going to have to capture it because I'm not doing that.
Make Locke do it, dude.
I hate capturing footage. It's like my least favorite thing in the world. All right. Let's get into it. Expedition 33. Matty, let's start with you. We'll start, high level as we usually do, and then we can delve into whatever we'd like. But I'm curious what you thought of the game and bring us in whatever direction you'd like.
Just to make sure, when's the spoiler light going on? Is this like
right away?
This is the spoiler cast. So you can spoil.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
okay,
I appreciate that. No, I don't care. The spoiler free shit is for the regular
dude.
shows.
If you're hopping into a thing labeled as a spoiler cast and you're worried about spoilers, dude, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, you got to get back.
I've actually, we've done so many and I've never thought of that. I've had people complain. I'm like, yeah, sure, got you. But now that you say that, Brad, I'm like,
it's labeled as a spoiler cast. We're going to spoil the whole thing. It's been months, man.
Yeah,
we've talked about it on Summon Science
soft
in all of our shows plenty of times.
Yeah.
No mercy.
All right. So I'll just dive in. Yeah, I was tremendously impressed by this game. I mean, it hit close to home in a lot of ways. As someone who's dealt with a lot of loss in their kind of late teen and college years, to have a story that subverts your expectations. Like you think it's going to be this grand RPG adventure. I think that's what the best stories do. Like you don't really know what it's actually trying to say until late in the game. Something actually Metaphor did. But Expedition 33 starts off as like, we have to stop the painters. Like you have a clear North Star. You're working toward that the whole time. It's the big bad. Everyone's dying, yada, yada, yada. So like immediately, it's a world about loss. But as I got deeper and it's really in that back like 25% of the game that you start to learn about the painters, the writers, and that this is just a whole world drawn by these painters who are dealing with loss within their family. And they're kind of living within their own grief, refusing to move on. I found it incredibly real, despite how fantastical it was. Just like how lost in that sadness you can get when you lose someone you care about, especially in the case of this game. It's dramatized, it's traumatic, it's like the worst possible scenario, but it also kind of serves as the interesting, unexpected backdrop to a much broader world that I'm curious of how they're gonna, if at all, pluck at. Like, that's the thing, is this game is so Final Fantasy like that I'm like, oh, they could just do a whole other game that's about the writers, or is this just this world? And then they kind of, like Final Fantasy does, like, okay, we keep the core elements and we just like make a whole new world with new factions and maintain some of the terminology. Like, I'm really curious to see where they go with it, but I adored it. Everything from, of course, the combat speaks for itself, just that mixture of action and parrying and dodging. But this game, just the story is what brought it to that next level. That soundtrack is incredible, but it brought me to tears multiple times. Just the story itself, especially at the end, that sort of like, you got to let go, and seeing how hard it was for these characters to let go and what that meant to them. But at least in the ending I got with Maëlle, and sort of the peace that she had, even though, you know, like her parents were together again, and she kind of had been forced to move on by Verso. But like, sometimes that's what you need in life. Like, you can't just putz around and be sad and live in that grief. You got to take the next step and not just live within it. So again, I thought, despite its dramatic nature, to make it an interesting, compelling story, it felt very real. It felt very believable. So I loved it, man. Like, it really, these are truly endearing characters. And I walked away with very few complaints, because originally, if I were just to wrap this up, I'd say the only complaint I had was, I'm, you know, like Lune and CL, like, these are great characters, but I didn't feel like I got to know them as well as I'd hoped to through the main arc. But then I went back after beating the game, and I had those kind of campfire conversations with them, and I was so impressed by the level of visual detail that matched their character stories. Like, CL having a scar on her stomach was a big part of her story, but it just looked like, oh, this is, you know, like, she's been in battles before, or she's been scrappy before. But when you learn it's like connected to a lost child and whatnot, you're like, damn, dude, like, that's, or like the bracelets she wears, or you know, that level of character detail visually, and kind of having it reflect on the script, I think is brilliant. Because that shows excellent writing, because I don't know if that was always the plan, but that shows the writer looked at the character and went like, okay, you gave her a scar. What does that scar mean? You gave her bracelets. What does that mean? And gave real purpose to that. So I just thought it was, again, excellent from top to bottom, sometimes even funny. So I just feel this game hit all the notes I could have asked for. And yeah, I had pretty decently high expectations going in, because of just looking at the trailers leading to launch. I was like, this looks really good, but I didn't expect it to like be the kind of lock-in game of the year, and one of my favorite games of all time, walking away from it. But yeah, just thought it was incredible.
So one of your favorite games of all time?
Yeah, like, not a top 10, I would say, because there's still like little nitpicks that just don't fit the Matty vibe. Like, I think like the damage numbers and the XP numbers it's such a nitpick, but they get absurd to the level of like, you're getting like 2.5 million XP from killing an enemy and you don't level up. I'm like, I fucking hate that, dude.
I do too. I prefer the Dragon Quest style of low numbers.
Yeah, like, I think high numbers can feel good. Like, I think Persona does it well. Like, does Final Fantasy, the newer ones, I don't remember, but I know Persona does it well. Where like, when you get those high numbers, it feels like you've really hit that. So, you know, it's just little things like that. But like, top 30 easily, top 20, I'd have to really get into it and think more. But it's up there, and to have that feeling, it's the first time I felt this way since Persona 5 Royal, where I was like, oh, I just played one of my favorite games of all time. That's an amazing feeling. That's what that was like. You know, it's been 5 years, so that was cool.
I think about that sometimes, of like doing even a top 50 list of like my own one day, or like even doing a video or something. And I'm like, I'm not entirely sure I'm capable of doing it. Like, I don't know that I can boil down everything to that. I would forget something would be in the wrong place.
When you're in like the 30s and 20s, I think, even though a lot of people are like, oh, I can keep track of my top 20, I'm like, I feel like that can just rotate constantly. You know, the top 10 to me is very solidified, but the top, once you go beyond that, it's like kind of just what's working and vibing for you, I feel.
Yeah, I was But what is the last game to even? The Last of Us Part 2 is probably the last game that even entered my top 10 that's even come out, I would say. But there's maybe some. This is what I'm saying. It's like I'd have to really go look, and that would take like an enormous amount of time for me to figure that out. Okay, cool, good place to start. Brad, let's get your similar top-down kind of views of Expedition, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty.
I really liked this game. I think it's really good. I think it's one of the best games of the year. I don't like it as much as most people, though. I guess what it's been, I talked to Dustin about this. A lot of it is just the story didn't really click with me. Once I found out they were just kind of like in a painted world and none of it really existed in the real world, I kind of like lost investment in it. And I was like, well, you're not even fucking real, so I don't even give a shit anymore. Kind of thing like that. Unfortunately for me, I did like the combat a lot. I thought it was a really good step in evolution for the genre, and it really stood out to me. So I love that. I did like the characters overall. I don't like love them. Like, for instance, I don't think about any of them after I beat the game. I'm like, yeah, they were cool. I enjoyed them when I went through, but nothing stayed with me, I should say, once I finished the game. I kind of just moved on, which isn't what happens for my favorite RPGs. But, I mean, that's like no fault of the game itself. It just didn't connect with me necessarily as much as other people, which is fine. The world was interesting. I liked that it had the world map kind of thing, that old school RPG thing that all three of us really are fond of. That was really cool to see a new take on that, kind of an evolution. So I was really happy to see that. But yeah, as I think about the story more though, because I did do a little recap before we went into this, because it's been a while since I played it. I do think some of the stuff like the writers and the painters is very fascinating. And I'd kind of like to see more of that. I guess Matty kind of brought this up about what they could do in the future. If they do anything, they could easily just move on to something else, and I'd be fine with that. But I think there are some very interesting elements to the story. But the stuff I found the most interesting is maybe not what they spent the most time on that kind of stuff. I was more interested in the outside world and all that kind of stuff going on than in the painting, I should say. But despite I could nitpick any game forever, but despite my qualms with the game, I still think it's an excellent game and one of the best of the year. Easily.
Okay, good. For me, I think it's the best game of the year I've played so far. But I was looking at my list here, and it's like I've not played very many games that came out this year. I think I've played a handful, like fewer than 5 games that have come out this year, probably. So, but I've played 25 games or something this year so far. So it's like it's going up against like Atom Fall, which was fine, and Breakout Beyond, which was really good, but that's like an arcade game. Things like that I've played, but and Indiana Jones I platinumed, but that doesn't really count for this year. So
counts.
There's just a lot of
Indiana Jones. That counts.
Well, I mean, it came out last year.
Great game, yeah.
But it came to PS5 this year. I thought it was very good with a lot of problems, personally.
Sure,
but
sure, I can see that. Yeah.
But yeah. So all right. So Expedition 33. I have so many notes here. I think it's a great game. I think it's exceptional, actually, in a lot of ways, and I highly recommend it. I think it's the value proposition is really high. It's cheap. It's only going to get cheaper. I think it's on Game Pass right now, too. So if you're listening to this at the time it's coming out, you can go play it over there as part of your subscription. So really good value. I'm surprised that they didn't opt to charge a fuller price for it, $60 or $70. I think they could have gotten away with it. And I do think that I wonder what they would think of that. Like, I feel like it wouldn't have really affected the broadening of the game because it was so popular and so well received, and they probably could have made even more money. And I do wonder about the Game Pass thing as well, how they feel in hindsight, because they got a flat rate of whatever. They have a publisher, so they're gonna have to split the money. But I wonder if they feel like they could have sold more a la carte. They hedged their bets a little bit. It's one of the very rare third-party Game Pass included games at launch in which the team that launched it brags about sales and not about player numbers. They've never said about how many people played it, because it doesn't matter when you're selling that many copies. So I'm thrilled for them from that perspective, because they made a lot of money. And again, they have a publisher. They're splitting off the top gross 30% to the platform holders, etc. So it's never as much as you think it is, but it's a lot of money, and I'm thrilled for them. One of the things that I really love about it is that it is French, And not that it's made in France, like Quantic Dream games are made in France, but they don't feel French at all. In fact, their Quantic Dream games, like many other places, are obsessed with the United States. What I loved about this game was that it was French and it felt French. And I make fun of France all the time. I make fun of Europe all the time, but that's distinct and interesting in games. Mm-hmm. And I was really pleased about that. Does it get a little bit on the nose sometimes with the Eiffel Tower and all that? Yeah, it's like, but that's cool. It's like the baguettes and the hats and the striped shirts. But I really, really liked that part of it. It felt truly distinct, stylistically distinct, and all of the rest. I agree with what Brad said about the story, that the story, when it was revealed that it was all in a painting, I actually really lost the wind in my sails personally. And the game became far less interesting, because what I like when the premise is that you're existing in a fantasy world. And by the way, how this whole fantasy world comes to be is actually quite fascinating. You would need to really go into the backstory of the game. And I did that in preparation for this. And I even went over with Micah, because I'm like, am I understanding? Because she understands the game a lot better than I do. I'm like, am I understanding this right? Because it's actually quite interesting. Mm-hmm. But when you introduce an element like that, I feel like there's an avenue out, like a cop out. You don't have to kind of frame and square everything within the world itself, because it's all fake. So the whimsy and fantastic nature of it is a human element put into the painting, if that makes any sense, as opposed to a thing that you have to justify as existing because it's real. Mm-hmm. And that was a disappointment, because I was like, why is this world the way it is? This is fucking weird. Where are the people, and how did this all happen, and who are these creatures, and this vast ocean and these continents and all this stuff? And they're like, oh no, it's just all made up. And I'm like, that's fine. That's cool, because it brings you in a different direction. And I know a lot of people love that, like Matty and a lot of other people. Right. Mm-hmm. But to me, I was a little disappointed with that. Where I was like, now there's a lot of emotionality at the end, I think. Mm-hmm. And I made the bad choice, in quotes. I got the bad ending because I made the choice that I thought made most sense for Mael. It actually reminded me a lot of The Last of Us, in that you are ostensibly making the wrong choice for a selfish reason. But to me, I'm like, I get it. And I don't want to make it's not Mass Effect. So I'm not trying to make the decision that's like, oh, what is the power? It's like, I'm just making the decision that I think is good for the story. And that's the decision that's good for the story, is keeping this whole thing going and leaning into the sorrow and the inability to cope. Yeah. So I did like that. And it's not like a great insult to the setting or the story itself. It's just that, I would have loved to seen it stand on its own 2 feet better. Now, the other thing that I really want to give a shout out to, and it's what has already been brought up, is I think the combat's exceptional. And it's one of this is a very rare JRPG, or what I would say JSRPG, Japanese style role-playing game, that is predicated really on combat. And I was saying to people that, and a lot of people were looking at me weird about this, but I'll reiterate, is like, this game reminds me of Final Fantasy 13 in a weird way. Mm-hmm. And
you have a skill called Paradigm Shift. So
right. I wonder how many people really played or remember Final Fantasy 13, because a lot of people are like, oh, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, it's a very corridor-driven, pseudo-open game.
I wonder that all the time.
Right. And it's like, go point A to point B to point C. And sometimes there's a little ancillary things, but you're always going back to the path. And then what you're really playing for, like with Final Fantasy 13, is the combat. And the Final Fantasy 13 combat system is awesome. It's actually like the saving grace of the game. I loved it, the paradigm shift system, as was said.
You're speaking my language, bro.
And this game, no, I'm not a huge fan of Final Fantasy 13. I'm just saying that, like, and I'm eager to get those games back. Like, they're already on Xbox. Obviously, you can play all the Final Fantasy games now on Xbox, all the core ones. 13 is really the only one, and 11 technically I would be missing from PlayStation. But it would be nice to get. And I never played 13.2 or 13.3, but just 13, and maybe I'd be open to it.
13.2 is good.
I love 13.2.
But 13, the original 13, like I really want to go back and play, because we brought it up, Brad. I think you heard them, right? I did a bunch of boss videos at IGN, and it's like, I'm like so miserable in the VO for the videos, because I'm like, I don't want to be playing it. So I'd like to, but anyway, so it reminded me of that. I think the combat is really rich, and I gotta say, well, there's a few things. First of all, I think people were vastly overstating how hard it was, because I think people were almost intimidating me out of it in some sense, where it's like, oh, it's like a Souls-like game and stuff. I'm like, really? Like, I didn't see very much of in very Colin fashion. It's what we were saying with Resident Evil Requiem, where I'm like, I'm not looking at anything else for this game. I'm good. I'll buy it when it comes out and play it. And that was the thing with Expedition 33. I saw like a trailer. I'm not even sure I ever saw gameplay, but I heard about it. And then I was like, it's about this world where they're like erasing everyone at a certain age and stuff. I'm like, cool. And then so I really didn't know what I was going to get. But I knew that people were saying it was really difficult. And because of our travels, Mike and I had to go to a funeral and everything. Like I didn't get to it until like people were already into it. So I went into it a little bit intimidated. And what I found was, and this is what I think is really special about the game and so interesting about it as a Japanese style role-playing game, is it's a rhythm game. And it shows you, it's not unlike a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne or whatever, but it brings you to a place and you have to learn certain songs. And you have to be able to respond with button presses to them. This thing appears, attack X. It's like, all right, got to wait this beat, block, 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 right? That kind of thing. And then it forces you to remember like 5 of those things, like 5 enemies, 15 attacks, whatever. And then it erases all of it from your mind. And then it brings you to the next area and does it again. It is exceptional. And what I think is, so this part of it reminds me of Final Fantasy VIII in that you could conceivably go through the game and fight very little. Now I didn't do that. I like to level up, and I was like in the mid 50s when I beat the game. But this game isn't about withstanding damage or stat rising or anything like that. If you could just play it properly, so I guess what I'm saying is, and I'd be curious to know about this, is like, this is a game like the early Final Fantasies where you could fuck with it deeply. Like I imagine there are low level runs of this game happening. How low level can you be to beat the game? Because none of that is going to help you survive if you can't do the button presses. But if you do the button presses properly, you'll never get hit. It doesn't matter if you are low level or high level. Yeah. And again, I tie that into Final Fantasy VIII because Final Fantasy VIII notoriously is easier the less you play it. If you just run through the game, there's no reason to like fight a bunch. Now, again, I didn't play it like that, but I could see the seams in the game like that where I'm like, okay, there's this very predictable combat system in which you could conceivably beat the game without getting hit once if you know how to play it. And again, that would be one of the things that I would also be interested in, is like someone very like high stakes live streaming the game and just never getting hit.
Yeah.
Sorry, no hits against like the secret boss, Simon, which is like, I haven't tried it, but like looks insane. So yeah, like you can definitely, I'm sure there's already no hit runs.
Right. And again, it goes back to 2017's Wolfenstein 2 had that infamous achievement or trophy where you had to beat the game without dying on Uber, which is when I saw that, I'm like, that is fucking impossible. And then I've watched videos of people doing it. So where I'm like literally that's impossible. And then like 2 days later, someone does it. So I'm sure there are people that do that, but I I dig that because it's a very modular system. And can be beaten and played in lots of different ways. So you could grind, withstand more damage, use a lot of healing spells and items and kind of survive and do your best and kind of just brute force your way. But there's a much more sophisticated way to play it. And there's almost a Final Fantasy 1 style way to play it. Remember, Final Fantasy 1 is like as an oft manipulated game where people like playing as like all white mages or whatever and making it as difficult as possible. And then the other side of that is like, how can you make your party ridiculously, like comically broken?
Yeah.
And you could just tell in the game, and I haven't looked at this at all, whatever, but I've said this on Sacred, is there are so many systems in the game and so easily manipulatable that I imagine people have made broken parties.
They had to patch out, I think a particular Lumina or something like that. That was like
Mael, right?
Yeah. That like one of her combos was like just
breaking the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And that's cool. I dig that. That's old school. So I'm going off the beaten path a little bit, other than to say that I just think the combat system is truly special and it's approachable. And I really even like the idea of like, you can parry or you can dodge. Like I was telling people on Sacred, I dodged pretty much constantly because there was just it's like you could be aggressive and try to do parry damage, or you can give yourself an open window and just survive to see another day and just slowly whittle away at the enemies, or more slowly. And that's what I did.
Yeah. Did you fight the secret boss where you have to parry her?
No, I didn't do any of the secrets. And I'll get into, I did some of them, but I didn't complete all the optional stuff, and I'll get into why that is later, because it's one of my major complaints in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think it's really good. Unique combat, small team, gives me a lot of hope. appropriately priced, good publishing partner, ubiquitous availability. I'm surprised by how many people like it, honestly, but
sure. Yeah, I could see that.
It's just, but I'm also surprised by how many people like Souls games. There is just I have a disconnect, I guess, with what people are really into or really doing. But I play as someone who plays so many Japanese role-playing games and just role-playing games generally, this is a strange one for people, in my opinion, to
I
glom
think
onto.
What it is a perfect. This is, I think, one of the most important games we'll see this generation, not because of the story, but I think of it a little bit like what Final Fantasy VII Remake did or Persona 5 did, where even Baldur's Gate 3, like there's been a lot of turn-based style games. Final Fantasy VII Remake's pushing a little bit, but it has that turn-based element. There's been a lot of turn-based elements, though, in these games that are hitting these viral levels. And I do feel like outside of Persona 5, Expedition 33 is truly the most like traditional in the terms of like your turn, my turn, and sort of the ways you can fuck with it, where I just think part of it's not even the Souls level combat. It's more like, oh, this is like the next step for turn-based, like bringing in action elements. Because you could see all of like what stands out most about this game to me is you watched as really 7 Remake set off this kind of cascade where Trails would go on to try to do action into turn-based. Metaphor would do action into turn-based. And all of them are kind of doing the same hack and slash, but then you enter turn-based in some way, shape, or form. But Expedition's like, we're going to be very true to turn-based like Persona 5, but have action elements in there. And so I think what it's going to serve as is really the floodgates are opening for turn-based. And I don't even really... I think people attribute too much of the success of this game to the Souls-like element of it, of like the parrying. I'm like, I think it's just that turn-based is at that level. Like, and I think if you want to see the damn burst, I think if Final Fantasy for 17 went like back to true turn-based and that was a great game, I think it would be unlike anything we'd really seen before in the terms of sales. But I think these games are really like planting the seeds for that. I wouldn't say planting the seeds. They've kind of bared the fruits of that labor, but that turn-based is just like on another level right now. And it's just doing extremely well. So part of me wasn't like surprised because I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 was the moment I can point to where I went like, oh, just like the impossible can happen. Like these games that are not supposed to be popular can be the most popular if they're good. And I think Expedition is like another example of that. But I think Expedition's more important because of its price point and how much crazy shit it does for how cheap it is.
Yeah, they definitely made a bold move to price it that way. It's a very aggressive move. It's almost unknowable if it mattered. And that's what I would wonder at Kepler, especially like the guys that are studying the numbers and whatever. It's like, yeah, could you have extracted at least 60 out of it? And would it have really mattered?
They could have, but they were a product of, I think, some circumstance. Like they released at a very fortuitous time where like Nintendo, Xbox, like they're all like, we're going 80. And people are like, Mario Kart's 80, bro. And then here comes like this absolutely incredible game that doesn't look like it sacrifices on any presentation. You have the biggest actors in the industry as part of it. You have known actor Andy Serkis is in the game. You have these like incredible stars. It's like, oh, $50. It's like, it just makes everything look like what these other companies are telling you is a lie. You know, they're like, or they're just horrible at budgeting their projects. I mean, also, I think what we're learning, and Colin, I'm sure you could speak to this a little more deeply because I think you study the economics of the industry a little closer than I, but like, I just think making games in Europe is clearly a big part of this industry's future because it's cheaper. I mean, you look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and like, and how, I forgot what they said the budget of that game was, but it was for the scale and scope of it. I mean, it was really cheap,
right?
Compared to like a Bethesda Game Studios game, which is made in the West,
41 million
less. And it's, what was it?
41 million.
Yeah. Which I think is
seems
just
impossible,
insane.
But yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're also learning that these companies are trying to invest in either remote teams that utilize, I guess what you would say is like foreign workforces, or companies based in like Europe or other parts of the world, like not America, because they're cheaper. And you see if you like, you can charge $50 for a game that's probably 60 or 70 even and make a killing. At least that's my read of it. So I think it's just such an important game in so many ways, like for turn-based and open. But what I was trying to get with turn-based was just opening that door for so many people where like the next turn-based game, it's like a bit of a baton pass since really 17 with Persona 5, where it's like then the next turn-based games explodes, and it's happening at a more rapid clip now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy if it gets people into the genre.
Yeah,
that's what like would be the most exciting thing about it, I suppose. I think a lot of the appeal with the game though is kind of the vibe of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. First of all, sadness sells. People love a good sad story that gets the drama in there, baby. That we call that Oscar bait. People love that shit. That helps right away, and I think just the Western style of it, for better or for worse, a lot of people are put off by the more Japanese anime, however you want to say it, aesthetic. So I think this game, there are people thinking it's like a very serious game. Probably got a lot of them into it because I've known it. I've talked to some people about it, and just like the way it looks is a big part of it for them. And you guys are right. The price, $50, that gets a lot of people in the door. If it was $70, I think it would have done fine. Okay. But I think $50 is just so appealing to people. People feel like they're getting a steal when they see something for that much money nowadays. And like you're saying, from like the visual quality, like I think there's definitely lacking polish in some of the visual elements. You could tell it's a cheaper game in a lot of ways to me, but to most people probably won't see it and it doesn't fucking matter to them. So I think it did a lot right, like you're saying, Matty, to snag people.
You know, also product of it like the environment released in is like, it was at a time where like things were just really like tariffs are ongoing, like things are getting more expensive. And I do think some of its sales are going to be mildly exaggerated compared to like the next big boom, only because again, this felt like a very safe purchase in a time where everything felt like it was rapidly changing. And this was like, at least in entertainment and specifically gaming, was this like sturdy force of just like, hey, remember how it used to be? Like $30 or $50 to get you like a 30-hour game. You could be done with it, and it's an experience you always remember.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Just like when you were a kid. And I think that speaks to a lot of people, and we're seeing it happen more and more. I don't think it's a coincidence that you're seeing like Mafia is going for 50.
Yeah.
You know, like these big games are going for cheaper, and the fact that Borderlands 4 bulks and they're like, we're staying with 70. Like, I think that blowback is real, and there's only few that can withstand that 80. I think Outer Worlds 2 being isolated as Xbox's current lone $80 game is a mistake. I said Call of Duty should have taken that fall.
Yeah, that should not be the first one.
Yeah, like Call of Duty should take that fall. Yeah. Outer Worlds 2 should be 70. That's fine, I think. Because I think the game looks amazing. Not to turn this into a whole conversation about just like pricing of games, but yeah, just I think Claire Obscure really is the central point of that moment where I think people were like, I think companies are going to realize, we can make a lot of money by actually going lower and just selling higher volume. It's still risky, but it's also very risky to go too high and sell, and you're not going to sell as many copies. So I'm sure there's a level of what Colin said, like, damn, people really like this. You know, we could have sold this for 70, but also they reprinted their collector's edition. I bought that. They had a ton of merch with exclusively at the IGN store that sold out. So I think they made a killing on peripherals too.
Yeah. They've done just fine.
Yeah. I noticed IGN did have like the exclusive merchandising rights with Expedition 33. And it's funny, like, as what I was saying earlier with whoever licensed or optioned the film before it came out too. It's like there were people that definitely knew
something
and got involved, which is pretty cool. I went to look this up because I just, that's why I was muted, because I was clicking around. Just to put a little bit of a finer point on it, because I think we have to look at Europe as multiple countries as well. And the average salary in the Czech Republic, where Warhorse is and where Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is made, is $23,000 a year. The average salary in France is $40,000 a year. And the average salary in the United States is $64,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So, So yes, but it even depends. Like they're in the intermediate area where it in France, where because I was saying this on Sacred is like it actually gives me a lot of hope that a small team out of France can make a game like this in a society that is notoriously pro worker and people aren't getting what they would perceive as the unmitigated short end of the stick because they're such an activist country. So I think that's great. That there can be games made in different places in Europe, definitely, and Asia are definitely the future of AAA game development. I just don't think that the cost of doing business in the average person at Naughty Dog makes 6 figures easily. So, and are they better? Is Naughty Dog better than Warhorse? Yeah. But could they really cut costs by making it? That's why it's so funny. Sony was always so Europe centric, and really, they really don't have a great many European studios anymore. I mean, you have like Media Molecule and
Gorilla,
right? And, you know, whatever. So, and obviously like their mobile game stuff is over there, and Nix's and whatever. But so, yeah, I think that that's totally relevant. And it's just, it is like you said, you don't want to make it all about economics, but it is an interesting component of the game's success. And it certainly was attractive. Like, they certainly spread the field maximally at $50. But I would love to know what their data says and like what their instincts say. And I would doubt, certainly this game's going to get a sequel. I assume it will be Clair Obscur : something else, I guess. I don't really know if that's the world that they're making or whatever. I'm not really sure what Clair Obscur is, to be honest. But
I hear it in the lyrics a lot.
Right. Yeah. It's
Clair Obscur. Yeah.
But I assume it'll be something else, and I doubt that the game will be $50 at that point. But
yeah, they'll be one. I think they'll be more emboldened now if they want, where like I maybe 70 will be the new cheap at a certain point by the time they come around in 4 or 5 years. And they're definitely going to be in that Larian camp, I think, where people are going to be like, hey, whatever you want. I think goodwill is a very real thing in gaming, and it snowballs if you can maintain it. So
yeah,
I think they'll push their luck where they can. And as long as they deliver another amazing experience, people will line up to buy it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very eager to see what they do next. So, all right, let's get into let's start with the story, I guess. And we can, Brad, let's go to you, I guess. What did you think of the plot? And we went a little bit into this about the painting world, and the painters and the writers, and there's a substantial backstory to the game. I actually found some really useful resources online that helped me understand the full breadth of it.
Oh, okay.
As well. And you get a lot from the journals that you find as well. And there's something specific about Expedition 60 that I wanted. Does that ring a bell to you guys? Expedition 60? There's like
no.
The guys that like
Zero does, but not 60.
Zero, yeah.
The guys that like figured it out basically. But couldn't get back in time to like let everyone know. It's really cool shit buried in this story.
That's cool. Yeah.
But anyway, what did you think of? Let's talk about the plot.
Overall, I think the plot's good. Overall, I mean, clearly a lot of people love and kind of stuff, and it did keep me engaged. I would say, though, as the game went on, I guess after that big reveal we talked about, this game took me a long time to finish, I would say. And it just wasn't hooking me in like I wanted. It wasn't like when I played Metaphor or whatever, I played it in like a couple weeks because I loved it. But this took me like a month to beat for some reason. And I don't know what it is necessarily. It's really hard for me to pinpoint about like what it overall didn't grasp me with, but I liked the characters. I really felt for them. I think it was cool. I appreciate the campfire scenes because it did give you more context with them. I just wish there's a little more of that done within the actual game instead of just sitting at a campfire.
It was very Metaphor
all the time. Which is fine. I don't mind some of that, but I wish there was more diving in. Like you were talking about, Matty, with like Lune and stuff like that, like more of that in the game. And there is some stuff like side quests you could do, which is cool for all their characters to get a little more something from them, which I appreciate. But once they started talking about like the writers and the painters, I was like, oh, what's this? This is really interesting. And I was kind of hoping they were going to dive more into that. But Colin, you'll have a lot more context for that, which I'm curious to hear about. But overall, I think it's a good story. I did like the characters and I wanted to see where they finished. Just didn't grab me the way I wanted to overall, but it's like, I don't know. It's not necessarily like a objective thing where I think about like story bad. It was more of a subjective thing to me.
Yeah.
In this stuff, it just didn't hook me as much as I wanted. But overall, I could still respect it and be like, yeah, I totally see why people love this story so much. Just didn't hook me as much as everyone else.
Because I know we talked about it briefly where everyone kept writing into you like, oh, dude, wait till you get to the end of Act 1, which
that
obviously
did piss
is
me
where
off, dude.
I was going to say that's where Gustav dies and Verso takes over. As someone who had the pleasure of reviewing the game in a setting where I had literally no one breathing down my neck, I was like, holy shit. Like, I love when games do this. Like, the main character's fucking dead, dude. Like, I made a joke right away. I was like, "Oh, you had to get Daredevil out of the out of
too
the budget.
expensive." Yeah,
he's too expensive. But yeah, I thought that was a major hook. But since that expectation was created for you, is there a level where it was
that's a totally
the Act 1 hook didn't get you?
There's a totally a fair point. If people were very annoying about this game to me, people saying that stuff, just wait till you get to end of Act 1. Boy, does it get crazy. It's like, don't fucking tell me that. I don't want to know that shit,
that is
dude.
a spoiler.
Yeah, that's bad. Don't say that to me. I was describing Expedition 33 fans like Nier fans, like the most annoying fan base, but I love the games. I think they're great. But it just reminded me that like just so obnoxious about everything. And that could definitely play in it. For sure, like the Act 1 thing, Matty, did sour me a bit because I don't want to know that shit. If I was generally surprised about that, like I didn't know it was going to happen, but I knew something was going to happen. If I didn't see it coming at all, I think it would have been more effective.
Yeah, because then you're like, well, where are we going now? Who is this guy? Why is he taking over? You still have those questions.
Like,
I
didn't
mystery
know.
Isn't as strong because you knew there was a mystery that was about to get.
Yeah, like I didn't know Gustav was going to die or Verso was going to. I mean, I knew Ben Starr was in the game, but I didn't know what role he played or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was definitely annoying for me, Matty. So that could definitely weigh into it. Luckily, nothing else was really spoiled for me.
That's good.
I should say. But I don't know.
I think there is that because I think of like the Matrix, for example, right? Like there's a lot of stories that I love the stories that kind of take the world there with the characters are within and sort of like recontextualize it mid plot. And it's like, it's actually this. And there's something much more grand. Because I feel like the best stories, in my opinion, at least, take something that feels grand, like we're going on this expedition, we're taking out the painters, and it turns into something like deeply personal down to like a family of 5 to 8 characters by the conclusion. Like it's like like it's about us now. It's not about, we know it's going to affect the world, but like this is about a very like particular family problem that's gone on for too long now.
Yeah.
That spoke to me a lot. But I can also get why some people feel the rug gets pulled out from under them when it's confirmed to them like, oh, this isn't real. But that's what I thought was so brilliant about it is it's like, well, does that matter to me, the player, if like you see at the end of the game, if you choose to go and be Verso and force Mael out of the painting, Lune literally sits down on the ground on the other side of that portal and is like, this is real to me. Like I'm staying here until like its dying moments. It's like, is all that she experienced truly fake? Like they had a full life. They made friends, found love, experienced all these things. Like there is to me something very deep and thoughtful of like, well, these characters were extremely human, extremely real. And it was real to them. So how fake is it really? Especially if there are other worlds like this. And we don't know how those are portrayed. It's like they all think it's real too. So it was definitely like, I thought it was very tasteful because there's a lot of games that go,
yeah, it is.
Like I don't want to name what game it is, but there's a game I can think of where a lot of fans of that franchise got pissed because it's like, it's all fake. And there's been a lot of these things that have happened actually. And people were like, well, you didn't build to that. I thought this game intelligently built to that, where by the time I got to that point, it was still a whoa plot twist, but it was like, oh shit, okay, I kind of see how we got here. Because to me, like what Colin was saying, why are things so fantastical? I was like, I was kind of disenfranchised by the visuals for a while. I was like, why am I in a part of the world that's literally underwater, but it's like a box of water. Like I'm like, what is the floating waters? But then you find out it's all part of a painted world. You're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like this is just like some like watercoloring.
Some kids painting, yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, that makes so much sense. So it brought for me into focus the world that was otherwise ridiculous. And then it got personal again when like Esquier was this little buddy that Verso always imagined when he was drawing, this kind of imaginary friend that he made real. Yeah. And I'm like, damn, man, like that's kind of like I used to carry around a stuffed animal as a kid. I'm like, that was a friend to me when I was very young. So when I saw that, I was like, that's, and you see Mael like holding that Esquier doll. And like, I think that sort of stuff connected with me deeply because I was like, they did such a good job at like transitioning. Like that transition's hard. Like you can do it in a snappy way like Matrix, or you could do it in this gradual way like Expedition 33, where I'm like,
yeah, I was happy they let you like sit with that for a while. Yeah. It wasn't introduced like the last minute kind of thing, so you knew it was coming. Yeah. But Matty, it's interesting you talk about like the story reminded me of Kingdom Hearts at some points, Where I'm thinking about like,
how so?
well, this person's not actually really real. They're created from something else. I'm thinking about like Roxas and stuff like that, like nobodies and things like that.
Nobody, Alicia.
Yeah. And I'm just like, what about Kingdom Hearts story did I latch onto more about it? I guess that made me feel something more.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's just how the characters are delivered necessarily. Like, I still felt like something, I guess, Matty, when they were gone, but the stakes are definitely lowered where I was like, to me, it was kind of like a robot being like, oh, help. I'm like, you're not even fucking real, dude. Like, I don't feel bad for you, kind of thing like that. So I don't know, Matty. This is an interesting game where like I think about it more. When I do think about it more, it's like I like it more. I like it less. It's like my opinion is like constantly shifting when I'm thinking about the story. Just the narrative's point.
Yeah, no, I get you because I definitely have, I think, an affinity for humanizing the impossible to humanize. Like Nier Automata is a great example. It's like these robots and the way they behave. Like I think of the Become as Gods moment. I won't spoil it further than that, but I think of that moment. I'm like, oh, this is like they're performing like human actions.
Yeah,
but they're very much not human.
Yeah,
and I just find that I'm like, well, what is going on here? And I feel like these characters who are drawn and portrayed as humans are very human. Like they've gone through their own trauma and tragedy. And like, there is that sort of like, you know, in the best ending, in my opinion, you just ripped it. It's like, sorry guys. Like,
yeah, that's what I
did. Nope. Lunate. Nope.
Yeah.
Like you're lost to time. You know?
That is interesting, Matty. Cause I do think about Nier and stuff like that. I'm like, why did it work for me in those games more so? This kind of thing. I don't know. It's something I should think about more, or I need to think about more.
I also appreciate, this is something I think actually out of all games I'm looking at right now, because it's on my desk, but 100 Line Last Defense Academy does, is I think there's something fascinating about watching game developers kind of explore, in a way, a metaphor of their own medium. Apparently, Cog told me, I've never played it, but apparently Split Fiction does a similar thing. Kind of more about like corporate greed. But 100 Line explores it in a way where like the studio Tokyo Games who made it is in this really isolated spot where they've made a lot of bad decisions along the way, made a lot of bad games along the way. And so like this is their last chance, like their last Defense Academy. So they're in this building and the fire's around them and it's like shrinking. And it was a perfect metaphor for the exact situation that company was in, where like it's do or die. And like you are the last chance to like push through that fire and get to the other side and find hope and find what's going on. And it's funny because the game ends up being extremely successful, and it seems like that company is going to live on at least to see one more game, or at least a port of this game, and then hopefully one more game. So to me, what I love about Expedition 33 is it's kind of this exploration of like the viewpoint of an artist. And you don't really get to know what the writers do and how their worlds are portrayed and how they come to life. That's the one I'm like really keen to see. As someone who does a lot of writing, I'm like, oh, I want to see how they do that. But to see it from the eyes of an artist and sort of like the idea of like scrapping, like if you're drawing this whole world, you're like, this isn't good anymore, and you scrap it and throw it away. That's kind of like what you as the player is doing when you choose to like get rid of the painting and leave with Mael and her family and find that like peace. So I found again that exploration of like that creativity and allowing the actual artist of the game to be as unhinged. It's like, hey, this is a painted world, so like let your artistic instincts flow in whatever way you want. And like, you know, the primary magic, if you will, is ink. I'm like, that just the way the terminology works and how it's very cohesive, and it kind of speaks to both a personal story but like game development. I'm like, this is again, like just I think a very special story in that way, where it really got me thinking for a while. It was actually a review I did unscripted. Like I just like fired on the camera. I was like, these guys like got to feel the raw emotion here of like just how this game made me feel. And I just went in. But yeah, like that's why I think it makes sense why it wouldn't connect to me for some people when they're like, yeah, this feels like the rug got pulled a little bit. But for me, I kind of love what they did with that ultimately.
Yeah, totally.
One thing you guys had brought up a while ago in the conversation that I just wanted to touch on real quick before we move on is just the idea of consciousness and creating consciousness. And there does seem to be something very timely about this story. I'm actually playing Death Stranding again right now. And
I'm on episode 8. That's so funny.
Oh, cool. I'm still on 4.
First time playing it. So.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this game feels like it's made for now, not for when you're reading it through 2019 and they're talking about chiral printing and AI and stuff, it seems like a lot more vague and off in the distance. And now somehow Death Stranding feels really pertinent. There's something about the creation of consciousness in this game and the way, especially Mael, deals with the consciousnesses that have been created. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk about about everything that leads up to the story that I found so fascinating, because I didn't know a lot about this. And but it adds an element of science fiction, in my opinion, to the world. I think it takes place in the early 1900s in the real world. I could be wrong.
That's the vibe I got. Yeah, at least by the way
it's
they
obviously
dressed.
like an alternate reality. It's not unlike Order 1886 or something like that, where it's supposed to be. It's, I think, intentionally supposed to be somewhat confusing. But there's a Black Mirror vibe to it. I don't know if you guys watch that show. I love it, although I haven't seen the last 2 seasons. But the first 3 seasons of Black Mirror are like fucking.
I've only seen a couple episodes, but I enjoyed it.
Incredible. There's the episode that comes up sometimes that people enjoy and that I really like, called White Christmas. I don't know if you guys saw that. That's the one with John Hamm in it.
I've never seen the show.
I don't know. Are you into science fiction? And did you like
sometimes?
Do you like Twilight Zone? Do you ever watch that?
Yeah.
It's like a modern Twilight Zone.
Oh, okay.
But it's all about technology, and so Twilight Zone could be about like the past and weird shit too.
Right.
But it's like, but this is very much about technology. And there's an episode of this isn't really a super spoiler because it's not really what it's about, but you would read this in like the plot, like this is what it's about on the back of the box. There's basically a company that is taking people and making personal assistants for them, and the personal assistants are copies of their consciousness, and they're put into these machines, and the consciousness that's copied doesn't know it's not real, and they use it against them to break them, basically, so they act as slaves to. So there's like a woman who has like a personal assistant that's a copy of her. And she's supposed to like wake her up and tell her this and do all these things, like kind of like an augmented reality thing that like is overlaid over the real world. And they live in these various machines. And the people are often horrified when they find themselves awake in this machine, and this like white room with no agency, no clothes, can't do anything or whatever. And what they basically do is torture them into submission to work on behalf of the real consciousness. But there is no distinguishing principle between who is real and who isn't, other than that one exists in the real world and one doesn't exist in the real world. So they do shit to them where they're like, for us in the real world, it's the weekend. We'll be back on Monday, but we're going to make it so it feels like 5 years for you. And when we come back, you'll be completely fucking broken and ready to do what we want you to do. And so they do shit like that to them. And there's kind of a vibe and this is what Matty was saying. There's a vibe to that I couldn't escape here about, and it's why I feel so modern with AI and super intelligence and everything, where it's like you're creating things in this painting, or things have been created in this painting that don't know that they're not real, or don't necessarily care that they're not real. It would almost be like me telling you you're not real. It's like, okay, maybe not. Maybe it's the Matrix and I live in a fucking battery pod, but this is my reality and you're ending it.
Yeah.
And so I think that will resonate with people that have seen that episode of Black Mirror. It felt very similar, and it injected sci-fi and horror, in some way, into real horror, into about the end, about oblivion.
My only question with that is, can't Mael just paint them again if she wanted to?
I suppose this would. I'm a little confused about this because Mael is herself introduced into the painting as a child and then grows up unaware of anything.
But then she unlocks like painting abilities and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is like, is her experience deterministic, or does she have free will?
Well, I mean, like the Maya outside of the world and stuff like that. Like everyone's gone. Let's say you do the ending where you leave the painting, everyone gets erased, kind of stuff like that. Everyone's very sad. But they could always just make another painting, right? And just paint it all over again.
But what I'm saying is, like, would it be the same person? Would it?
I don't know.
Because Mael isn't painted as she is.
Because they get erased though, but Mael resurrects them. All of them.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the rules really. I'm sure it's probably in the game, but I don't know. Really know
it might be. I just don't know. That's what I was asking. I was just thinking about it.
So I do dig that there's like attention paid to this story I about outside the painting and everything. I'm just not sure I care about it that much, but it's because we don't know, like, for instance, the writers, we don't even really know who they are
or why they're fighting or anything.
Right. Yeah. Presumably they're the ones that write the books and the poems and the lyrics. And then there's the people that make the visuals. And is there some sort of tension between them? Like, I'm not. And then, like, is it genetic? Because the Desandra family are all painters. And this was one of the things that I thought was interesting that I think was missing on me. Is that, like, they all kind of add to the painting as they go. And so they're able to kind of manipulate the same canvas. Because, like, all these elements and enemies and all these different characters are introduced by different people, which I thought was pretty interesting. But I'm looking through my notes here. So here's what I mean, this is what I wrote verbatim. The real world, there are classes of people called painters and writers. Their skills are enormous. It's suggested that these skills could at least be partially genetic, as the Desandra family are all painters. The Desandra family in real life are Renoir, Aline, Claire, Verso, and Alicia. Alicia is Maëlle. A fire in the real world kills Verso and leaves Maëlle horrifically scarred and maimed. Making matters worse is that her mother blames her for Verso's death. She thus looks at an alternate identity in the painting as a reasonable escape from her real world issues, which are serious and deep. And her power is waning against Renoir, who just wants it all gone. So one of the cool things I do like about the story, and one of the things that I think is most emotional about the game, actually, and like undeniably emotional, is when they actually realize that killing the paintress was a major mistake. Or
that Renoir was kind of, she was cool.
Yeah, like Renoir is basically leveraged against her, and so is not able to accomplish the erasure of everyone. And that's like, so when the gommage happens when they go home, I like back to Lumiere or whatever, I thought that was awesome, like a really cool twist. But again, by that point, I was just like, well, I'm not into the whole painting thing. So here, painters and writers channel a type of energy called chroma. So chroma exists in the real world. And there's some sort of mysterious problem between the two groups in which they don't particularly like or trust each other. There is some reference to the idea that the painters and writers may come to conflict in real life. And when the writers are blamed for the fire that kills Verso, the conflict is only exacerbated. So the writers are responsible for what happens to Maëlle, but we don't really, or at least it's blamed on them.
Yeah.
We don't really know why. And then the Desandra family, and particularly Verso and Clea, created the world in which Expedition 33 occurs. This is where I really wasn't really quite understanding things, and I had to like read about it. When Verso dies, saving Alicia or Maëlle, Aline, the mother, realizes that the painting is all she has left of Verso.
Right.
And this is the world that Verso created. Verso created the Gestrels, Esquier, Monaco, and so on. But then the family starts adding its own elements to the painting. This was the stuff that was lost on me that I don't think quite understand, or maybe I just forgot. I don't know. So I wrote, initially, the Desandra family enters the painting after Aline herself does, realizing that the only way to get her out of Verso's world is to let go of him once and for all is to destroy the world the painting is set in. Thus, Renoir introduces the fracture. So that's like his element of the painting. And that's the mysterious apocalyptic event that destroyed the world and the people in it. And battles the paintress, who ends up being his own wife, who is becoming stronger in the world due to the chroma that's being lost. So Clea, the older daughter, Maëlle's older sister, introduces the Nevrons into the painting to kill the humans, to try to stop the chroma from going to the paintress, her mom, I guess. And then that doesn't work. And so Renoir introduces the axons to the world, which are like the big bosses, like the weapons.
Yeah.
And Renoir is the one who's ultimately behind the gommage. It's been going on for 67 years. And everyone under this age perishes, basically, as we know. And so I found that interesting, that tension interesting, that we don't really know that the paintress is trying to slow it down, actually.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting shit. That's interesting. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, like I said, the subverting of your expectations is, I think, the thing this plot does the best. Just like you go in and like, again, this is like your clear North Star, and when it's not your North Star, it's not just like, surprise, she's actually doing this, but it feels like a whole second plot takes form, as I kind of described earlier, and takes you on a much different ride to kind of that finish line. Again, very Final Fantasy. Like, Final Fantasies usually like midpoint of the game is marked by like the airship moment. Like, okay, you have your ship and now you can go everywhere that you were like traveling by foot. And so now this whole world is yours to explore. You kind of get to that point with SGA a little bit quicker. But when you hit this point, it's almost like the narrative version of that, where it's like everything you've experienced up until this point is not what you thought it was. So yeah, I agree with what they did with the Paintress was really good, because it's just brilliant in that it works as a starting concept. Like, oh, when you turn this age, you disappear. We need to stop that. And then obviously, knowing it's more of like a preventative measure almost. Again, just like really, really smart narrative design. I loved it, man.
But again, and it's not to rewrite the story. I'm not nearly talented enough to write something of this caliber. But it would have just been more interesting if the Paintress was the enemy that was, and for some mysterious reason, when people were just dying year after year, as the number got lower and lower, and they just had to figure out why that was. Like, to me, and I think I noted this earlier, was the painting concept is cool. The real world stuff is interesting. It's kind of like Assassin's Creed, where, you know what I mean? Like, so it's cool. Like, who knows? Like, they basically abandoned that whole thing in Assassin's Creed. You can imagine this getting to that point if this game goes, the series goes on, but I don't know. But I just feel like it's a cop out as well. It's like, it's like a bigger thing and we'll worry about it another time. And the stakes aren't quite what they seem they are. And the fantasy world isn't quite as grounded as you think and all the rest. And I like the different elements of it. I've been very complimentary of the different elements of it. I especially love this family collaborating and trying to make the situation worse and worse by like introducing monsters and all sorts, and like a horrible apocalypse and everything into the painting. It's a really cool idea, but I guess what I should throw this out there is that like the one thing is that when I started the game and you're in the town and you're walking through and you're talking to everyone and the flowers everywhere and you get this real melancholic, eerie feeling. People have too many flowers because everyone's dying. There's too much of production. There's not enough people to use all this stuff. I'm like, this is fucking dope. Yeah. And and I feel like I never really recaptured that feeling in the game.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that. I think, that was a critique I had for the game. It's like, there's not enough towns. Like, I don't care about the gestrels enough, or the gestrels. I forgot how you say it, but like, I didn't care about them enough where it was exciting to like find a town of them. Yeah. Like I wanted more people.
Yeah. It's like a Moogle village. It's like, I don't really care about this. Yeah.
Yeah. You could tell they were trying to have like their own like Moogles or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
their own like mascots. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of what the product of this game is, if I were to really wager a bold guess, I would say that they kind of like hit trouble a couple of times through the development of the game and just had like really good answers to it. Like, we're running out of budget. We can't do Charlie Cox anymore. All right, kill him. Like, all right.
Maybe.
And then it's like, all right, well, we have like a little bit more room left and we got to like set something up. Like, once we beat the Paintress, like it kind of ends. It's like, okay, like let's go a little step further here, phase to it, and like kind of tease what's next and build around that. The other thing that they did that was smart is they didn't do any side quests really. They just said, let's do additional fights.
Yeah, it reminded me of
it's all in the main story.
It was like all the side quests were kind of like near the end of the game, I would say. Like, there's a lot of optional. Like, I spent a lot of time doing a lot of the optional stuff before I killed the final boss.
There are more. I'm pretty confident saying there are more optional areas than there are mandatory areas in the game.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot going on.
I mean, it helps that the level design for them is so straightforward, though. Like,
that's
few
true.
of them are like sprawling. I agree with the kind of critique that, like, man, I wish there was like some sort of compass or something, only because what would happen is I would go off what I thought was the beaten path to like go find other like Pictos or whatever. And then it would end up being the route that progresses the main story. And it would just be presented to me as like a fork in the road. I'm like, I guess I made the wrong choice there. And there was no good feeling about that. So, I think that's probably why they were able to bang these areas out quicker. Some of them were just like literally vistas.
Yeah. There's nothing really interesting going on.
Yeah, it was very it was very Final Fantasy VII like with
like
the
camera's like positioned differently.
Yeah.
You're just like this little character walking around, but the camera never moves with you. I agree. That was very Final Fantasy-esque. But also, when I started to learn about the paintings, there were areas I felt kind of empty. I'm like, why the fuck did I go here? Like, who gives a shit about this? But then I learned, it's a painting. I'm like, this is like something Verso just like did and was expressing at that time. And again, I felt it added some value to it on a thematic level.
Okay, let's get into some of the character stuff here, and we'll get in. I guess. Well, you know what? I'm looking at my notes here. Does it make more sense? You know what? Pardon me. Let me interrupt myself here to just get this in here before that, since it makes a little more sense linearly in what we're talking about. Is that because I do have critiques, like real critiques of the game, not like, oh, I wish this story went differently, because everything's been very positive so far, and that's awesome. I think the game's awesome. I really do. But there are problems with it, and you guys are outlining one of those things that I guess think it makes more sense to talk about now, which is the game doesn't communicate very well, and I don't really get it. It's not fucking Bloodborne or Elden Ring or something where it's like, we're gonna really give you it's not Fallout 3 where it's like a real mystery. You know, figure it out. It's like, no, like, you're doing a lot. There are a lot of systems here. You're talking to me a lot. There are extensive tutorials and you're introducing new elements or whatever. So why are there no area maps? Why the fuck is there no quest log? Why are you making some things really obscure and weird, but other things you are hitting over the head and making it obvious? And I saw this just a couple of days ago and I didn't look more deeply into it, but they said that they're releasing like a major update, as I understand, and working.
Oh, really?
Like,
yeah.
And it's like, you have got to fix these problems.
Yeah.
I mean, these specific problems would, if ameliorated, make the game substantially better to the point where you would have almost nothing to complain about, other than what you take of the story and the characters and stuff, which is going to be a subjective thing. And of course, I guess every way you interface with the game is subjective too.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are like, oh, why do you need your handheld and stuff? And I'm like, it's just kind of normal to have a quest log in a game. I mean, one of the reasons why I didn't go back and do more in the game, I did as much as I could. Like, when I would find something, there's like a little nice, it's not like Dragon Quest where you just have to get your ass kicked to realize that you go into an area you're not supposed to, you cross a bridge, famously in an old Dragon Quest game you're not supposed to, and then you just get killed by an enemy you're not supposed to fight. This game does a nice job of communicating like a danger sort of thing, like you're not supposed to be in this location. I would still go into the location to add it to my map. But by the end of the game, because you're kind of going in a northward direction, then you're kind of backtracking sometimes or whatever, but it's like, dude, there are a lot of fucking places on this map, and I have no idea where I've been. I have no idea like what I've done in these different places. There's nothing in the game that signals to me if I need to go back to this place or not. I have no idea where the fucking collectibles are. I have no idea. It's like where the optional bosses are. Nothing. When I go to an area, there should be a quest log that's like, okay, like little, or maybe even a question mark. It's like, you know, something is here. It's like, it's a fucking video game, dude. You know, why are we video gaming it up so hard in that one way? And then being like, well, no. We're going to have extensive tutorials and explain the shit out of all of these different features. But you want to find your way around the map? I don't think so. You know, and to me, I always bring up, I've done it many times in this conversation, things that of examples of older games or games that I've played that remind me of. And this reminds me of God of War Ragnarok. And to an extent, God of War 2018, where it's like you have this really wonderful game and then you just can't do the little things. This is like one designer for a month going through the maps and like drawing them out, you know, grafting your location onto the location on the map. This is a fucking time as PS1 era and 64 era thing. This is not above and beyond requests. And these little things, I think, make it more difficult to experience the game without doing two things. One, you just raw dog it and try to figure it out yourself. And I have no time to do that. Where it's like, I'm going to run into all these different dungeons. I'm just going to fucking dick around for a few weeks and try it. It's like, no. The second thing is you have to use a walkthrough to do it. And I'm like, well, I love guides. People know that. But I actually didn't need or use a guide for this game. It's like, what do I need a guide for? It's fairly straightforward. But then when you realize, and you kind of fly around with SK at the end and you go all these areas, it's like, geez, dude, there's like 20 fucking or 30 places. And I have that I don't know if I've even been to them. So I took umbrage with that, and it is my hope that they fix those things. The cynic in me, and I'm not entirely sure this is untrue, but I mean, who knows, is the lack of a map specifically felt like a padding thing to me. And because it's like, yeah, if you run around in circles, you'll add 3 or 5 hours to the game. And a lot of people that play these kinds of games are going to want to see every nook and cranny, and they're going to want to open the treasure chests, and they're going to want to find the Pictos and fight the optional enemy in the area or whatever. And so they're just going to be running around in circles until they figure out, like, until they really like remember the area and be like, all right, I've seen this before. I've done this before. And I found myself doing that a lot. And I'm like, that's not fun. I don't think you have to necessarily introduce a map. I get why people are like, it's immersion breaking and weird when you go into an area in a game and then you have a full map of it. It's like, cool. I get that. And I agree. The game that I would reference is like Ys, where it's like, yeah, go to an area, and then as you walk around the map, it adds it. Yeah, and then you have this, you have this tapestry, and then half of it's on full. So you know you got to go to the northwest, fill in the rest of the map. But here, so I'm surprised by how more people didn't want that. Or I know people were complaining about that, but whenever I bring that up, people like jump down my throat. I'm like, really? Like, you just want to walk around blindly? That's strange. I'm not into that. And I think the quest log thing is a real miss too. Like, just in having a way to, it's not an SNES game or an NES game. It's like, or even a PS1 game. It's like, yeah, like we do track these sorts of things. Games do this now. You have to, I don't know. It seems like nitpicky, but I actually really feel like it really affected my ability to play the entire game. Unless you really want to, again, use a guide or just lose yourself in Clair Obscur. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to go to every dungeon and try to figure it out, or I don't know. Just like, where have I been? Show me.
To me, I read it as like they clearly adhered to Final Fantasy design through and through. And so I kind of read it as like, as someone who's kind of been over these last few years chipping through these old Final Fantasy games and loving most of them, I'm like, some of these are just really obscure, and people are like, oh, I love 100%ing them, and like, oh, there's like these hidden things over here and here. I'm like, how the fuck do you want to figure these out? Like, again, product of its time. I feel like they maybe flew a little close to the sun with that, because I agree. Like, ultimately, I have not 100%ed Clair Obscur. I've got most of the achievements, but there are some I'm still missing because the best way to put it is the reason why it's not like top 10, it's more like top 20 or 30. It is kind of like a pain in the ass to, as you described well, Colin, to get to these points where I'm like, what was I doing? What have I done? You know, what is remaining? How much shit do I have to like fly to get to that point where I can then check if I have that thing or beat that thing that I need for this achievement or this trophy. So I'm with you on that. I think area maps are fair to ask for. Especially because it's not like you're like, I don't think it'd be bad if they did this, but it's not like you're asking for like waypoints everywhere.
No.
Some people do find that immersion breaking, but having a map to just be able to say like, I am here. And by map, I mean like local maps, right? Fallout does like the world map, and then they do the local maps.
Right.
Like a local map for these dungeons. It's like, I am here. Part of me, if I was to be cynical, I think they didn't do it because most of them go like this.
Oh yeah, they don't want to show. Yeah,
and I don't think they want to call attention to the fact that, because a lot of what they did, I thought that was interesting, is they really decorated the fuck out of this game and lit the shit out of this game, so it looked bigger. Like the skies were huge, but it did what 13 couldn't do, because 13 was technically hampered, where this game could have these more expansive in the distance locales that you're never touching. You know. Like you're never doing that. It's not like, I'd say like a better comparable is like Space Marine 2, where you see something in the distance and you eventually get to that point. But it's like unbelievable scale and views. And this game, I think, distracts players enough. And I think the map would call attention to like, oh, it's just a straight path. You know, I still think the functionality is worth it.
Yeah.
But I do think there was a level of kind of masking and playing into like, oh, it's Final Fantasy old school, right? Remember that?
Right.
Yeah, that's
no maps.
I think you might be right, because I do believe 100% in the level of cynicism like that. There, in other words, I refuse to believe that people that were deeply inspired by role-playing games, clearly, that no consultant, no mock reviewer, no one at the publisher, no one at any point was like, where are the area maps?
Yeah.
Like, I would have said that within 5 minutes of playing the first area, where it's like, we need a map. And so, so you have to assume that, and you might be, so then it's like, okay, so what are the pros and cons of doing the maps? And you might be right, Matty. I mean, I think that's a very compelling argument, that it's like, well, and maybe they even did it, some of them, and they're like, look at this. It's like,
yeah, it's like
they needed to do. I still think that within the trappings of a role-playing game, because people are like, I think you're right. It's like, oh, it's the way things were. And it's but I'm like, dude, we also used to record music in mono. Some things you just don't do. Even if you are a surf rock band inspired by the Beach Boys in the 60s, you don't record in mono. You record through your computer and you edit it and do all these beautiful things to it now, because those are the expectations of the time, no matter what you're inspired by and no matter what you're trying to portray. So I do appreciate, and I don't make these kinds of games and I don't want to, but I do appreciate games that are like, we're not telling you fucking anything. Like The Witness or whatever, things that I have no interest in playing. Although I feel like a game that was kind of like that I did play was recently was System Shock Remake when I played it last year, which I was in love with. And I'm like, that is kind of that kind of game, but I needed a walkthrough for it. Like, I have no idea what the fuck. I'm not fucking sitting here for 2 months. So yeah, my cynicism delves deep into that, just because there are too many people, even with a small team and a small publisher. This game goes through too many hands to not know. And it's the same thing with a quest log. And that's the thing I'm more curious about, where I would have said that immediately too. And I just refuse to believe that they didn't get these notes. I would be shocked if at least the map thing wasn't rectified in the update, but it would be really nice if they updated it with a quest log too.
Yeah. Just to touch back kind of on the no map thing. I like games that often have no map, but it depends on the game, I suppose. Like, I think of Dark Souls, famously, no map. So you got to figure it out on your own kind of thing. But I think the level design is so interesting and unique, and it stands out so much. You can actually have a grasp on where you're going, and you start to memorize a route like how you would in real life. And like you're saying, Matt, with Claire Obscura, it's just kind of like, well, your navigation isn't very interesting in the game, and it's all just fantastical and covered by a bunch of stuff. So it's all an illusion kind of thing. When you boil it down to brass tacks, like you're saying, it's just going to be a very kind of boring route. So I agree 100%. It was an intentional thing. They're like, no map right now. No map right now.
And now people have accepted it and decided, like, society itself has decided this is great. This is just going to be like a footnote at this point, that they probably know they can do better for the next game, but it's not going to like take away from any of the mysticism of the game or the excitement of the game. Like, it's already done its thing.
Yeah.
Will continue to do its thing, so if it is that Galaxy Brain, kudos to them.
Yeah. Kudos.
Yeah, it could be. I just feel Dark Souls is an interesting reference, just because I think Dark Souls is hardcore. Like, it's a hardcore game for people that are really trying to immerse themselves in that specific kind of mantra and mode of game. I don't read Expedition 33 as hardcore in any way, really. To me, it's like it's a fairly neutered Japanese role-playing game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's less about stats and more about skill. Right.
And it's more of, as I said earlier, like, I really think it's a rhythm game. I really do. Like, I actually think being a drummer helped me in the game.
Maybe.
Like,
honestly,
just discovering and the rhythms and replicating them. It's the same reason why I was really good at like Parappa the Rapper when I was a kid, and everyone's like, why are you so good at that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just very natural. To me, I feel like you have to kind of go with what your game is and choose your lane. And when your game, for me, doesn't communicate hardcore trappings in any way other than ways in which frustrate, and then that's used as an excuse, at least by fans, of why those things aren't in there, that doesn't wash with me, personally.
Yeah.
But
my other complaint about this game, I'm curious if you agree, Brad, your reaction kind of spurred it on me, because I was like, oh yeah, I did feel this way. It's the attributes, and I don't.
They're bad. I think it's handled very bad in this game.
I don't feel the impact as much as.
No, I really hate, Matty, how you use a certain weapon and it kind of locks you into wanting to optimize these certain stats.
Yeah, it's always like changing. Like, oh, I started off the game scaling like strength and agility, because I'm like, that's where it's telling me. I'm like, oh, this character is proficient in these things, and then I switch weapons. I go, oh,
yeah,
okay,
and it's like, cool, I scaled wrong now. You're like wanting me not to use experiment a lot. That's what it felt like to me. I really dislike that. I think there's too many skills in this game. I think there was way too many for every character. They didn't need that many.
A lot of like useless shit. Well, I hate that in games. It doesn't matter so much in this game, but in games that have skill trees specifically, that really bothers me. When it's like, dude, I don't give a fuck about 3/4 of these skills. I don't care. And you have to kind of use them. But these, you can kind of just find what you like and ignore everything else.
Yeah,
which was pretty cool. I think there are just too many systems in the game. It's kind of a mild complaint, though. I I don't think the game demanded this many. You know, you have like 8 or 10 systems when you think about it. Like the Pictos system and and then the Pictos gives you the Lumina, and the Lumina needs to be unlocked, and then the Lumina gets equipped, and you have to have enough points to equip the Lumina. And it's like, all right, dude, like what are we doing?
I really disliked how you had to do like 3 or 4 fights.
Yeah, that was
why are we even doing this?
That step was not necessary.
No. It's like it just seemed like a waste of time. It's like just give me the ability.
Because what I ended up doing, Brad, because of that, and this is a frustrating thing, is that like because I was getting so tired of switching Pictos on and off players, and then or characters or whatever, is that I just made one of the characters like the workhorse, and I was like, I'm just going to cycle Pictos off on you constantly. No one else is going to change at all. That way everyone can just learn. I'm like, yeah, this is an unnecessary system. You could have just cut the system out and just said that like when you earn a Pictos, it unlocks the Lumina.
Have you guys played Lost Odyssey?
No, the Xbox 360 game. No, I haven't played.
No, okay. Lost Odyssey has a very similar system, and maybe it's handled better. It kind of depends how you look at it. They have mortals and immortals, and basically you can link party members with one another. And as you get, it's kind of Final Fantasy. Like as you get AP, you learn these skills, and I think it's the mortals that learn from the immortals. So their skill pool starts off smaller, and you're kind of going into those menus and cycling pretty often. I adore Lost Odyssey from top to bottom. So for me, that comparable of like even the kind of QTE style combat, the skill system basically is the same as the Luminas. And then just like the story, the kind of melancholic nature of it, like all very Lost Odyssey. So I love this. I was curious if you guys played that because I saw that system there and I felt it was very underutilized. I was like, oh, this is something that I feel more JRPG style game should borrow from. And when I saw it in Expedition 33, I was excited because I liked going in there and doing, because it gave purpose to some of the common fights that I feel like eventually once you out level, you just maybe like sprint from or you get used to, because there's always like that driving force for me of like, oh, every one of these fights I'm unlocking something. And I felt like for some people I can understand how it might like wash over you and you're like, I just can't keep track of all this. For me, it was still tough to keep track of, but I reminded me so much of Lost Odyssey. I was like, I love this. Like, I love that there's actually a game doing this.
I guess, but it's just like at a point where I'd get a skill, like, okay, let me just go find some random weak enemies real quick and just do this and spend 5 minutes when you can just give me the ability. I guess
agree
right now.
I agree with you, Brad, completely. Where I get Lost. It's funny because I've seen people. Lost Odyssey is not a touchstone for me. Well, strangely, I would have been probably asked to write the guide for it back in the day, but I avoided it somehow. I don't know. So I never played it.
I hope they bring it.
I know. I need to play it. I own it.
I know, Brad, you'd love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it came out around the same time as like Blue 13. Dragon and Infinite Undiscovery and all that and all that other stuff.
Tales of Vesperia.
It's what I love 13, but I do call it the true Final Fantasy 13 because it was literally that Final Fantasy squad going off
Sakaguchi and stuff.
Yeah, Microsoft owns the IP, right? Yeah, it would be cool to for them to re-release
remaster
that.
it.
Sakaguchi said he didn't want to bring it back and like a remaster. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, bro?
Yeah. Also, it's probably
why not, dude.
Yeah. I don't get it. But I hope Microsoft ignores them.
Just one thing I would say about the Luminous thing, I wish Matty, I would have liked more is if it was it takes a certain amount of XP to level 1 up, I guess, and not just 4 fights no matter what they are. So it can make fights as you're going on. It's not just 4, it could take longer than that or shorter depending on how much or how powerful the Luminous is, and it should scale on that level.
To me, I look at, again, I hate we're referencing so many old role-playing games, and I always reference the same ones because they're better than everything else, but is the Esper system in Final Fantasy VI to me is like the perfect magic system because it's like you have the Esper can summon like the creature, but then you have like the perks of having it equipped. So like you get, a little bit of extra strength when you level up, but then you're learning based on AP, action points, or I guess it wouldn't be action. It's like a certain kind of experience points, like almost a job point. And it's like, you have like this Esper has fire times 5 or whatever, which means that you have to earn 20 points to learn it. And then you learn it permanently. But if you wait a little bit, you get a different Esper that will give you like fire times 10. And so you only have to have it equipped 10 times to learn it, and so on and so forth over 10 points. Just a much deeper system that is actually much simpler because it all goes through one specific item point as opposed to. So I agree with you. Like I like the Pictos system and I like the Luminous system. I like that the Pictos teach you Luminas, but it should just happen automatically like that. Because I did have like a pack horse character. I don't remember who it was. It like where it was like, you're just in my party and I'm just learning shit on you constantly. Because the Pictos would be like white, I think, when you didn't learn them yet. And so you would just kind of keep an eye out for those in the list.
Something like that, yeah.
I didn't like their menus that much, personally. Like, not in combat's fine. It's really good, actually. But in, like, the Lumina menu, that's where I felt a little
sloppy.
Like, it's just rows. And
it is a lot, yeah.
I guess sorting on a programmatic level is like a pain in the fucking ass, but I was like, dude, it's worth it because it's like, this is so tough to read. It's so tough to read. Yeah,
there's a lot of information. Like, you can tell that a visual, I don't want to say visually, stylistically, there's like a Persona influence, but it's 100%. Majorly toned down, which is cool. So it's not the splash of style where every time I see a Persona screen, or even in the games, like I've played like Metaphor or Persona 4, where it's like you have to kind of get used to it. It's like, what is this? But then it just works. And there is something very visual and in your face about Expedition 33 that reads like a more somber edition of a game like that. All right, what else is there to talk about here in my notes? I'm looking. Yeah, so the leveling up. I didn't like the leveling up the attributes just because I didn't really, it's like you guys were saying, I didn't really know what to do. So as I noted on Sacred weeks ago, it's like I just leveled everyone up equally. And I just didn't give anyone luck points, but I just gave everyone else basically equal points of everything else. So everyone was leveled up the same exact way. And I'm not going to say that I prefer one way or the other. Well, I do prefer one way or the other. I'm not going to say that this game would have been better or worse if they just did this, but I like Japanese role-playing games or Japanese style role-playing games that level you up and then tell you what's getting leveled up. There's something very satisfying about the Phantasy Star screen popping up, and it's like, you've leveled up, attack +2, stamina +3. Sure. Like I like, and it's just like, you feel like you're doing the right thing and working in the right direction. Maybe it's even RNG, so you're not really getting the same stats every time you play, but it's kind of bringing you in a certain direction so that you're more of a mage or you're more of a fighter. I don't know that I need the level of customization that this game granted you in that regard. I don't think it was better or worse for it. I just don't care about that sort of shit. I just would prefer, I would just like auto level me. That's fine. I want to level up. I want to become stronger.
Yeah. I think once I got to the end game, it felt worth it. It's just during most of the game, it feels pointless. Like when I got to the end game, like CL, like I just went in on her critical hits because a lot of her skills amplify their effects and their abilities if you're landing crits. So like she went from a character I never used to like a character I actually swapped out, I think Lune for a while, or I swapped out Mael as well, because she just hit like a fucking freight train, bro. So like, Verso, I had a very good basic attack build on him for most of the game where he would just keep getting turns and AP and just like he'd ramp up to max and I'd be able to do his like 9 AP skills, 7 AP skills, like in that range on like turn 2. But it took a while to get there. There wasn't really a build. It was more like mindless cycling and like, all right, I'm just kind of floating, finding my way. But by the end, I feel like the system justifies itself. It's just that, you spend most of the game I think at least not really making the most potential of it because you don't have that end game build. So like everything's just kind of in the middle throughout most of it, which is why I think they made it a skill-based game because the stats don't matter. They really don't until like you're the very tail end where, you need to push some level of strong damage and you get the painted power Pictos and that lets you go above like, I think 9,999. But it takes some time to get to that point. So it's definitely something they could design a little bit better, I feel.
Yeah, that specific Pictos when you can go above 9,999, where like the amount of damage I was doing at times where I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Essential. There were just a certain essential, I guess that would have been a Lumina that you could have equipped, I guess, eventually. There were certain essential ones in there. I found a lot of them to be like worthless, but that's kind of in a lot of games, I guess. It really depends on what you're looking for. Like if you're playing solo, there's like an entire grouping of things that you'll want to use that otherwise would be useless to you. One thing I do have to say about the combat system as well that I really love, since we're talking about all of this, is I do love the idea and how like if your party falls, the characters in reserve come in to the fight.
Yeah,
I thought that was really, really cool.
That's like a Final Fantasy 10, right?
Yeah,
you can swap people in and out like that.
Mael, I always had her in reserve. I didn't really use her very much. I ultimately did use everyone to keep them equally leveled because I'm always afraid there's going to be one of those times where it's like, oh, you need to use these characters. And at that point, they're like 20 levels behind. Although in this game, it's you get like a high percentage of experience, I think, when you're out of the party. So you really could just swap people in and out pretty easily. But I always kept her out of the party typically. And I loved her animation when she walks on and she like swings her fencing sword in front of her or whatever. The animation is so beautiful. But I loved that idea of coming in and saving the day. And I must admit that worked a couple times for me, where they actually did, like, even using that as a tool for leverage, where it's like, I'm going to go all out. I assess my party. I'm like, all right, I could heal a little bit. I can waste a turn. I see in the top left corner that the boss is going to go 3 times, right? But my guys are all going to go once. I'm probably not going to survive, or I'm going to have to heal again. Or I can just kind of, the boss is at 2/5 energy, and I'm just going to go ballistic on him, get him down to 1/4 energy, and then my other characters will mop up or whatever, and use that as part of the intent. It's kind of cool, I guess, a tool. If you want to be aggressive.
Yeah.
I really, really liked that. What about, like, so we've talked a little bit about the characters and their roles and how we don't really get to know them very well, or some of them anyway. But I'm curious what your preferred party was. Matty, did you have a party that you liked to...
Yeah, I liked, obviously, Verso in the kind of lead role. I didn't realize until I accidentally did it that you can actually take him out of that.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I thought, which I had no idea until this was like way after my review, and I was just kind of messing around with like some of the end game content like a week or two ago, and I was like, oh, whoops. I entered a fight and it was like Mael, Lune, and CL, and it worked. It was actually really good. But most times now, I think for most of the game I was with, Verso, Mael, and Lune, because you kind of have your mage, and then I used Mael mostly as a draw aggro kind of tank, and then Verso is just like heavy damage dealer. But yeah, I felt like that worked a lot, because then Lune had some healing capabilities. I do like how the game handles items, by the way. I thought it was a really unique way to approach items. Like instead of like, I think there's 2 types of RPGs. Like there's the ones that kind of do like the sea of items, and there's just an answer for every scenario, or like Persona has a million item types. And I do think that's great. I think that this game does rethink it in a way that I feel other developers will take note of. It is very Souls-like. You rest at your campfire and they restock the items, but you just have a healer, you have an MP refill, and a revive item. It's like, it's kind of true. It's like, what else do I need? If all these spells do all these effects, do I need items that are Molotov cocktails or whatever? So anyway, I used mainly Lune as a healer, so I didn't have to depend on items too much. So she had like the revive spell and the healing spell. But as I got deeper into the game, I really started to like using Verso, Mael, and CL, because each of them had their own sustain. My CL was very much like a glass cannon, though. Hit really hard, but I had to have perfect dodge game with her. I still do, because if she gets hit, she goes down quicker than anyone. And I'm like, I don't know if I built her wrong or what, but she has really good sustain. And obviously when you lay on like the foretell plus the critical hits, plus I forgot what the name of the move is though. But she does like hundreds of thousands of damage. It's crazy. Yeah. So she's really good. So that's kind of the party I settled on by the end. I also just really, I think out of all the party members, like I enjoy Lune's personality, and she's a very strong presence in the main story. Very much like it's about the mission, like she is very much sticking to that. But I found CL's story and what she had lost and how she had like come and gone. I found that very compelling, so I wanted to have her in my party. I'm kind of driven that way. It's similar to like a Souls game where you wear the cool looking outfits, even though the stats aren't the best, because you just want to look cool. I really, even though she was tougher to take care of, I vibed with her so much I had to have her in my party. Minoko went like unused. I just never give a shit about blue mage characters, dude. Like, oh, kill these characters, get their moves. I'm like, even old school Final Fantasy, I'm like, I just can't be bothered. So I just like, give me my moves, let me level up, unlock them on the skill tree. But yeah, that's what I settled with, was Verso, Mael, and CL.
What about you, Brett?
Use Verso the entire game. He's just fucking really strong. I used Lune also, just have the mage base covered and heals and all that kind of stuff. I used Minoko a lot in this game. First of all, he's like the only non-human, so I'm like, I'm gonna have this goofy little furball on my team right away.
I loved his design. It reminded me of Labyrinth, the Jim
totally,
Henson
like,
joint.
Yeah, what a weird ass movie.
I love that movie.
And I do love the blue mage skills. I thought they're really fun to get. I love that you take their feet like some pervert and learn their abilities. I liked his like wheel that would spin around, and like whatever thing it would land on, like that particular element would be stronger, something like that. I thought that was really fun. So he was awesome. But then later on, near the end of the game, I realized how busted Mael was once you started to be able to get, like, she unlocked her painter abilities. And I was like, well, she's too good for me not to use, pretty much. So I had to use her. And unfortunately, I had to bump Monoko. Oh, no. But I felt bad because he's just so sick. I liked CL's kind of abilities and all that kind of stuff. She was the character I was like attached to the least in the entire game. Mm-hmm. She kind of like played a back role for me. I don't know. But I liked her ability of like stacking the light and dark kind of system, like then going in Twilight. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were my mains.
Yeah. She sleeps with Verso, which...
Well, it depends. You could choose.
Oh, choose not to, I guess. Yeah. Which I
got around a little bit. As in, like, everyone.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, I mean, especially CL's story, it's a little crazy that, like, you do get to sleep with her. You know, I found that a little perplexing. Lune's made a little more sense. I definitely think they just wanted to include just being able to bang. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, both of them just felt
I think so too.
Very tremendously out of place. Where I was like, fuck it, why not? Like, we're gonna die anyway. Kind of stuff. So like, maybe that was the idea, but I couldn't really rationalize the romance in this game at all.
Right. Yeah, so. Like at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I used Lune, CL, and Monoko as my party pretty much.
Okay.
As much as I could. Lune, yeah, you have like the spellcaster. I like the stain system. If you monitor the stain system really well by using a specific... So if you use an attack, like it'll use a stain and you'll lose it. But there's a specific attack. I don't know if I wrote it down. I don't think I did, where you could just unleash all of the
four
stains. And that was insanely powerful depending on the stains you were holding and how you were trying to employ them on a specific enemy. And then of course you have like Healing Light and Rebirth and Revitalization, which are really important spells for healing in the game. So I liked having her around. CL was another co-healer, actually, if you use her a certain way, but is incredibly powerful too. The thing with her, and I liked using her, Micah's really the one that turned me on to using her more, like properly, especially, is is Foretell with the Sun and the Moon kind of cards.
Oh, so good.
And then getting into Twilight. And then once you're in Twilight, then you start doing twice as much damage. And you can do, as Matty was saying earlier, like incredible levels of damage with her.
Yeah.
Maybe more than any other character in the game if you set it up right. At least it was for me. But I especially found her Harvest and Grim Harvest skills incredibly useful. Grim Harvest is crazy powerful, which is like an attack that heals basically 80 or 60% or something of your health for your entire party. While Harvest,
I think she can also do like turn order manipulation. She has an ability that lets you boost everyone's like powerful shell and something else. Like she's just got
buffs. Yeah.
Like she's the one character I had so many abilities. Sorry, I mean, interrupt you, Colin, but she was the one character I had so many abilities. I did struggle to pick. Everyone else I was a little like Mael moved very little for me. Even Verso, I was like, man, these are like obviously the best skills I've got. But like CL just had so much utility. I almost wish they spread her pool into others.
Sure, yeah.
And then Brad, I was so pleased to hear you talk about Monoko because I'm pretty sure you're the only person I've talked to that played the game that also used him. And
really?
Yeah.
Man.
Not that I've talked to like an enormous amount of people, but everyone that I talked to, maybe 10 people at this point.
Yeah.
That have played the game. I am typically in Matty's camp where I'm not crazy about blue magic either, specifically because
it's so
if you think about it, it's super cool.
Yeah,
like I love it. It's like Gao also in 6, but Strago in 6, and of course just the blue mage in 5. Because blue magic kind of becomes what it is in 5, what it will become
as we know it,
right? And those are annoying because So I just played Final Fantasy V earlier this year and platinumed it. I played it before, but we did it for Knockback. And I ended up really settling on a blue magic character in the game because there's a trophy attached to getting all the blue magic. So I was like, all right, I'll just do it. And then to the point you're making, Brad, when I did it, so I was forced to imbibe, right? And be the blue mage. I was like, yeah, this is an incredibly powerful class if you spend the time to do what you have to do. And that's the rub, right? So in Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy VI, and Gao kind of using enemy skills too, so kind of a similar character.
Yeah, he was the one that I thought of immediately. Like, I just couldn't fucking bother with Gao, bro. I was like, yeah, you're out. Like, I'm not using you.
so Matty knows, but like in 6, Gao uses enemy skills, but you have to make him jump, like leap into a fight with the enemy, and then he goes off with them. It's actually a really cool idea because basically what's happening is like he's like a wild child, like raised by animals and monsters. So he goes and like runs off with the monsters and like lives with them and like learns their way. And then like in a future battle, he'll just return to your party.
Yeah.
And he'll know like the skill. And that's really cool, but that's fucking annoying. And and blue magic is not as annoying, but somewhat similar, where you have to get the enemy to attack the character with the skill. And it's not every skill. It's like this, every 10 enemies, one of them will have like one skill that you use. So like, it's like you're saying, Brad, if you get, 1,000 needles or whatever, you have to have it used on you. And so you have to like wait and hope that it happens. And it's very RNG heavy. And Minoka was so easy to use that it was comical not to, because as you said, all he has to do is be in the party.
Yep. That's it.
And you'll learn whatever skill that enemy's attached to, and most of them.
I haven't had a try. Interesting. Yeah.
And I loved the feat thing too, because I had it. It is funny to think about it in a pervy way, but I was thinking about it more in like a, Boba Fett I always
the Wookiee scalps.
Right. Like he has like, and they're like hanging off him and like braided and shit. I always thought about it like that. Like he had like a little, or like some ears or something, or scalps or whatever. Right. And he was incredibly powerful and quite useful. If you have to use the bestial wheel. It's as you were saying, Brad.
Yeah.
And this basically explodes the power of the attack they're using. So basically the best way to use them, in my opinion, is to have one of each of those things, that like a powerful move plus a healing move. And he does have a really useful healing move called Pellerin Heal, which is it heals the entire party and gives them regen, which is really useful. But I use Stalact Punches, which is the ice attack, which is super powerful. Dan used Waltz, which is a fire attack, which is really powerful. He had an attack called Chevalier Piercing, which goes through shields, which was really useful as well. So I really highly recommend him in the game, because I'm with you, Matty. Usually I'm like, ugh. Like, I don't want to deal with Gao it'll literally take you 20 hours probably to get all his skills in the game. It's like crazy. But in this game, if you just keeping him, that's why I never removed him from my party ever, because he just had to be there.
Get those skills.
Right. But I also found that I was learning more and more skills, but I was sticking with a lot of the same skills that I would use midway through the game probably. So yeah, I highly recommend him. He seemed really powerful, but I think from a damage perspective, CL is probably the high, just because whatever her peak damage is on her attacks, say they have 24 tel attached to them, so it's going to be really high, and then you're in, so that is what it is, and then you go into Twilight, it's going to just double it. So if you're going to do 100,000, it's 200,000. So yeah, I used Mayel sometimes. The stances are cool.
It's very good early game.
Yeah, she felt less powerful, right, as time went on. And Verso was cool. It's like I like the perfection meter and how he gets more and more powerful if he just attacks and never gets hit. But it's too high risk, high reward, where you're saving it. You don't want to like attack yet. So like you're just going and then you just accidentally miss a dodge, or they use a very bespoke attack on you and you're like, fuck, I wasted like 4 turns, trying to like execute on this ridiculous 200,000 damage or whatever, Go ahead.
There's a one weapon he gets that maxes him out immediately. So he starts at S. That was really good, but he can't be healed. So that's the trade-off. The other one that I really liked was the one that lets him double up on basic attacks. So I would like spam range attacks and then basic attack again and just go to S rank on the first turn while doing damage. And then just that next turn, it's like, okay, I'm S rank. I have like Lumina that built up all my SP. So I'm S rank with like 9 AP. how do I fuck you up now? And like, that's what I loved about Verso. I felt like he became incredibly strong. I also just kind of dug the perfection meter because it reminded me, I'm like, oh, if a DMC character was turn-based, what would it be?
Yeah.
I thought this was like a really, really unique character concept. Like, I don't know. I thought it worked really well.
Yeah, I like that as well.
The combat's, like we already gushed about, is incredible. Awesome. And I really think is the differentiator in this game. I mean, clearly is the differentiator. And I think they deserve a lot of respect for making something so novel and unique because there just aren't many novel and unique things in the world. My games are certainly not novel. You know, like they're fun, but no one's finding a new thing in them. Like I'm always riveted when it's like, damn, this is a great idea. This is a really great idea. Now, I wonder, are people going to try to clone this? And
100%. Yeah.
And that's going to be annoying.
It seems like the whole parrying wave is just not ending. Like every game has parrying. I've kind of like, I'll say soured is the right term. It's just like not exciting when I see like, oh, you parry too? Like when Doom was parrying, I'm like, oh my fucking God, dude. Like,
yeah, not all parries are created equal.
Yeah, I'm like, just Sekiro's great. We get it. Like, let them do it.
Yeah, I have a theory of the case about this because I've thought about that a little bit too, in that I feel like there was I mean, I know there was, like with CRTs into like 720p 1080i, like flat screen TVs during the LCD and like plasma era. Let me back up. I remember when we were making the guide at IGN for Punch Out on Wii. And we were like, we couldn't do it. Like we couldn't play the game. Like it wasn't working. And then we realized like there was a major problem with like the acuity of the experience on a flat screen. We needed to play on a CRT. And we started realizing this with a lot of other games that required that level of timing too. And I feel like I wonder if people were experiencing that and innately not understanding that things were just off. It's like using a zapper on a modern TV as opposed to a CRT. And so so that might have muddled things up and people were like, oh, we're not really into this sort of thing anymore. Like this mechanic of reactive mechanic necessarily. You have your Guitar Hero and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a theory of the case of, I wonder if now that things have settled down, everyone kind of has standardized equipment again, that things are actually working properly. Bless you. And like some of the Soulsborne games and now into a game like this have shown people actually like these things actually work really well consistently. You're not going to have a lot of frustration. I always think about that moment because I wonder how many people played it and were like, I can't play this fucking game. Like there's just something about it, and it literally just was the refresh rate of the TVs. And
shit.
So as things become more friendly, I'm not into like that mechanic necessarily for everything, but and I'm gonna be interested to see how people copy this. Is it gonna make like a Soulsborne run? Now that everything is that kind of game now. I'm even like noticing on the PSN like there's so many Vampire Survivor clones.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Oh yeah, no doubt there will be pretenders. I do hope people understand that. Like, I think the mistake a developer could make is trying to add like parrying to their turn-based game. Like I think it's just number one, the way they design their enemies and how they attack you and how the camera works. It doesn't always perfectly work, but for the most part, it is like very well communicated to you, like what windows of attacks and windows of dodging are taking place. And I just feel like you either got that sauce or you don't. Like that, and I think it's proofs in the pudding with the FromSoft clones. When you're not telegraphing your attacks well and you're fucking your player up, that's what separates the good from the bad when it comes to FromSoft games. So I think turn-based and just RPGs are already tough to make. Now you're adding parrying and enemy design and attack patterns, and it's like you better do it like Expedition, or otherwise you should not do it at all. So I hope a lot of teams just aren't capable of doing that. It's time, it's resources. Most do not have that. So it's like, I just hope those who choose to do it are well equipped. Then I'd be fine with it. But I feel like we're going to get a lot of shitty pretenders.
Because we've had plenty of RPGs with like input commands to like reduce damage, stuff like that. Like Sea of Stars is something like that.
Paper Mario even.
Paper Mario, yeah, exactly. It's been going on for a long time. So Claire took inspiration from those. But yeah, like you said, Matty, not all created equal. I do worry about people learning the wrong lessons from games, as developers always do. Some learn the right lessons, but we'll see, because we're going to be seeing this a lot, I feel like, as well.
I will say one thing that I leveraged in battle in this game, and that I don't typically leverage very much in role-playing games, turn-based Japanese role-playing games especially, is our status effects. usually they're done to you and you're reacting to them, but you don't, at least in my experience, it's like, I'm not trying to silence a character in the game, but I would often get silenced.
Oh, it's because like boss is immune to
right,
silence,
exactly.
or
Like
they're
the
immune to
gray
all that shit.
the so-called gray magic will never work on that.
Yeah.
But I did, it's different in this game, and I did, not all of it is different, but a lot of it is different, so that I did start employing a lot of things, especially burn.
Yeah,
I think was like incredibly powerful because you can just get it going out of control, basically, where it's just doing so much latent damage. Where bosses would probably die, I would probably have done 10 to 20% of my damage to each boss with like burn, just like by stacking magic on them over and over again. And then, I really liked the mark thing too. Marking, which increases substantially the damage you're doing. Stunning enemies was really useful as well. But there were some new ones, like exhausted was a really tough one to get put on you. That I think that was when you couldn't be healed. And even dying, I think, and revive, because I tried all sorts of things. I think I let my guys die and I'm like, oh, I'll just let them die, because that's an old like RPG trick, is like if you're like, you get like confused, silence, muddle, like whatever on you all at once, just fucking die. Toad.
Yeah, reset it.
It's like just die, and then I'll cast life on you and bring you back. That didn't work here, which I thought was kind of cool as well. And I liked that they had, kind of the normal stuff, like a buff, a debuff for power, haste, which they called rush in the game, and slow, and then shell. I like how they use the word shell. Shell in Final Fantasy is magic protection. Here it's physical protection, and then
that confused the fuck out of me constantly.
Yeah, it did for me too, because I'm like, shell. That's just inborn in me, where I'm like, shell is protect for magic.
Especially they lean so much into Final Fantasy. It's not like they're really catering to the fan base they're inviting in. That sort of confusion.
And it's already come up. Matty brought it up too. It's just, I like the AP system of constantly recurring currency, basically in-game currency.
Trails.
Right. Yeah. And I liked how there was an item you can use to kind of boost it if you wanted to. There were different lumina that you could have affixed to you that will boost it. And then some of them really were great, where dodging would earn them or whatever. So yeah, you would just get so powerful. And there was something very exciting about waiting, kind of like just, I got to use a regular attack here. Just bide my time and hope for the best, and then get where I need to be and then unleash that. It's a risk reward system. The one thing I'll say about this, which is awesome, and especially comes to mind having played Dragon Quest III recently and all the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters and just many other games, is that no button mashing in this game. You'll die. You have to really pay attention. And that might be annoying to some people, but it made everything feel consequential. And one of the things that I thought was like Dark Souls, and you were bringing this up earlier, is the expedition flags. When you would go to them, it would basically reset the map.
Yeah.
And in exchange for that, you would, get healed and your items would return and all the rest. So I thought that risk reward was nice too, because I do like, I'm personally a huge fan actually of random encounters. I think random encounters are great, but there's a different way to do things too. And this is a different way to do it, where you really could clear a map, avoid using the flag, and see it for what it is, and maybe find a secret boss or a little item out of the way. I thought that was fun. So it felt manageable. It didn't feel, the game never really made me feel like I needed to grind. Did you guys ever grind?
No, I know to get like to 99, you have to grind a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I did get 99, so I did a little at the end.
Oh yeah, I would imagine if you, I beat the game at 53, 54 or whatever. And there was one point 2/3 of the way through the game. I wish I remembered specifically where it was, where I was like, I'm going to level up like 5 levels just to give me a little something. I said this on Sacred 2 over and over again, is that this is the perfect, one of the things that stuck with me in this game, and this has stuck with me about video games my entire life, really, and it just works, and I always recommend it, is just, I hate getting to parts of a game where I'm having a hard time. That's annoying. But often when I do, and then I just go to sleep, and then I do it the next day, I can just do it. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there were 2 or 3 times where I'm like, this boss is really annoying. But I never was frustrated, because I was like, I'm just going to let my mind work on this. I'm not going to think about it. And then I'm going to come back tomorrow, and somehow I'm just going to know how to do it. And your mind is just subconsciously working on these rhythms and these button presses. And And so I think all 3 times, including the last, or it was the second to last boss that was actually really hard. The penultimate boss was really difficult. Each of those times I came back and beat them the first try, which was funny to me. So I was like, yeah, there really is something to that.
There's something to that. Yeah. I did that with Dark Souls when I first started playing that. Like when I was in, I think, high school, like just like, all right, time for a good night of rest. Got to bed nice and early, nice and responsibly, and just, woke up next day in the morning and just fucking cranked out the boss, dude. Like,
that's always the secret, man.
Yeah.
Or the strat. You rest.
Gotta rest. What else in here? We talked about relationships, the optional stuff. What did you guys, and this is one of the things I wanted to ask you guys about actually, was what did you make of the journals? Did you go out and look for them and try to read them and try to figure out? Because this was one of the cool things that I thought the story did, was try to have continuity between all the expeditions and the notes that they leave for each other and the notes that you're taking for the next expedition, assuming that you're going to fail, which there's a certain level of darkness to that I thought was pretty cool. I was curious if you guys messed around with them at all.
Yeah, I did explain. It seems like you have a more strong memory of them than I kind of, they're really a little Bioshocky, where they kind of painted the world a little bit in that real-time moment, but otherwise it's not like there's a particular one that did stick out to me, but it was more so because it was funny. Was like a guy who got, I forgot, I can't even fucking describe it. That's how like faint the memory is, but he kind of got like stuck in something, and he's like, man, what an embarrassing way to go. Like, I come out here, I figured it all out, and now I'm fucking stuck, and no one can come, like no one's gonna come and help me. And then I think he just got like eaten or something like that. Like the funny ones stuck with me. Otherwise though, the other one that stuck with me was the one tied to Lune's parents. Thought that was interesting, but that was more about like her campfire story, if you will. So there was that, and yeah, otherwise like good for what it needed to accomplish, but I can't summon any like immediate memories. So I'm hoping, Colin, you can at least fill me in on some of the cool ones.
I can't remember.
The coolest one that I was turned on to, and I didn't, so I turned on the game yesterday to see if I actually had found this one and just forgot about it, because I was reading them as I was finding them, and I'm like, I don't remember this, and I didn't find it actually, so in the game, so I wouldn't have known. But in researching the story and trying to figure out like what some of the interesting things are that I might have missed, I came across the story of Expedition 60. And basically, and this is just told, I guess, in one of these journals, and this is just cool. This is just cool storytelling, and something I wanted to share, which was, they basically figured it out and couldn't get back in time before the Gommage hit, and they all died. So this is on the Claire Obscure fandom wiki. And so this is funny. It's quote, rather than relying on any form of weapons or armor or pictos or even unusual gear in war machines, its members use nothing but their very bodies as weapons, foregoing even uniforms. Its members trained under a harsh regime, but in spite of Lumiere's mockery of them, it paid off. With nothing but their muscles and speed as weapons, they carved a bloody path through every Nevron that crossed their path, all the way to the monolith itself. Along the way, though, they did stop for a break where at least one completed the wall climbing challenge on a Gestrel beach, but declined the reward as it was clothes. Their immense resilience allowed them to do something no one did before or since. They pierced the monolith's barrier without being killed and reached its innermost depths. There, they discovered the secrets of the Paintress and the true source of the Gommage. Learning the truth, the members went deeper into the monolith to fight the Curator and stop the Gommage, but tasked one expeditioner, William, to make his way back to Lumiere to warn the rest and reveal the truth. Sadly, right before he could make the final swim back home, the Gommage struck and killed him, causing his journal to be lost beneath the waves. It's cool. Awesome in that they like almost figured it out years earlier. It would have been like, what would that been? 27 years before. And so just little things like that I thought were fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
No other expedition afterward found his journal though. Where was it? Where was it
lost
placed?
in the ocean, right?
Yeah, it said it was lost in the water. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So there's little interesting things like that.
Yeah,
the story's cool. I think it would have been more impactful if the world was grounded and serious. But then again, it wouldn't have been. The confines of the story are what they are. It is what it is. Because the story wouldn't even be able to be told or make any sense if not for that. It's about a painting. It's about grief and death and it's just, again, what the fuck do I know? This is such a talent. It's such a talented team and such a great studio and great writing. By the way, the writing is really good. The performances are excellent. The music is excellent.
Yeah.
Everything about it from that perspective is great. But what would have been even like, I don't know. It's like, why couldn't the real world and the painting be normal? Like today. And they're dealing with the grief. Like, it's got to be about the writers and the painter. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, but it could have just been like like this girl that has a magical ability to make these paintings. Or, well, I don't know. I don't want to rewrite it. It's great. But I think it could have been stronger in that respect. And I was disappointed that that's what it ended up being about. I will say that. But it doesn't really mar the game itself for me. I mean, the game's excellent. Where is this on recent role-playing games for you guys? People have taken some issue with me saying that I think I enjoyed both Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16, and Metaphor more than Expedition 33. So I feel like we've been eating really good with these kinds of games the last couple of years. But of those four, I actually think it's the weakest.
I think its biggest strength is its focus. There are games that I think like Metaphor meander a little bit and lose focus. Games like 7 Rebirth that definitely are in territory of like, what the fuck is going on, Ari? So I kind of throw that there in a losing bit of focus. Where 16, I've been pretty honest about with the audience many a times and have a review about it. I didn't care for 16 much at all. Like, I just think the transformation to a physical combat system and leaving behind RPG elements and the first act of the story is phenomenal, but I think just the way it unravels sucks. And so I was not crazy about it, even if I get why it's people's jam. So for me, I feel like Expedition is like leaps and bounds better in most of the shit. Pretty much all the shit I've played the last few years. And again, it's because I feel like it knows what it wants to be. It does it extremely well. It doesn't feel compromised in trying to achieve its vision. And anything that is compromised, like the maps and whatnot, like things that did bother me, attribute system, I think it also speaks to how good I think the game is, that those things did not really pull me away to be like, well, like it's also got that. Like I care enough where I hope in game 2 they figure it out. But if like this is your game 1 effort from former Ubisoft developers, mind you, I'm like, dude, you're fine. In fact, I don't know if you need to listen to a fucking word I have to say. Just clearly trusting your instincts and your internal teams is more than enough. So yeah, for me, compared to recent stuff, I'm trying to think like, Metaphor is one that I think comes the closest, but Metaphor also needs to be 100+ hours to do what it needs to do that Claire manages to accomplish in a much more impactful way in 30.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely of those 4 games I mentioned, the tightest by far.
And just to unpack that a little bit more, like what I grew up on in like the really early 2000s, I started to really get deeply into video games, was like BioWare style RPGs of the console generation. So your highly replayable 30-hour games, like that was their pocket. And that's still to this day the type of game I vibe with the most. Like, not these 80, 90 hour, 100 hour open world epics. Some JRPGs, I like those journeys like Persona or Metaphor. But it's really that BioWare pocket that I've always loved in gaming. And it's more because of its tight scope that it forces them to make choices that just keep things interesting every step of the way. I understand why people like to wander and meander, but I like that ability to kind of do both, like the hub style game. So Expedition really speaks to my taste in that way. I love a 30-hour adventure that is not going to soak up my time from other games, but also something I can give my all to. That to 100% it's still half the length of Metaphor. And, it's at a certain point, I think people find it like cheap to say that, but I'm like, look, with how much content is coming out, this is now a factor. It is unavoidable that like the amount of time I spend with something is a major factor. Ignoring the price that I pay for it. Like that time spent is so valuable because there is so much good shit around me. So you could be great like Metaphor, but you're still taking 100 hours, which for me is an easy month. Like it's going to take a month to beat you. You're taking 100 hours of my time. And that is something that doesn't always turn out into a positive. Something like Persona 5 Royal, it's like, that's a journey and you see how these characters evolve in a really meaningful way, especially at third semester. Whereas Metaphor was a little less so. So I'm meandering a bit. My point being is that tight 30-hour focus, I think, makes it infinitely better. 16 had my attention because of that, but it somehow manages to lose focus in that small window. And I'm like, I don't know how you fucked that up. I just don't. It's like, it was so hard to go away from what you were doing in the first act, but they did. The third act is just like a lot of great side stories, but it's a game I want to replay at some point. But
yeah, I personally loved 16. Not just, but the biggest reason is that it felt truly epic and grand.
Oh, I mean, the cutscenes are like,
and the boss fight,
the definition of
incredible.
Epic.
Incredible. Where we were saying at the time, like, this was like literally a small team within the studio's job making this fucking thing for 3 years, just this boss fight. I loved that. I agree with you. I think Metaphor, my common complaint with games that I love, The Last of Us Part 2 is a great example. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a great example. And I think Final Fantasy 16 would be an example. And many games, too long. Always the major complaint is like, you don't need to stick around this long. I don't need this much out of you. I would argue that time spent has always been precious, but I agree with you that it is becoming an increasing problem as the volume of games increases.
Yeah.
And my own behavior as a consumer just shows how crunched we are. Like, I'm just not even playing new games mostly at this point because there are so many things I've missed that I want to catch up with. But I think you're exactly right that this is such a strong first showing that their Uncharted 2 is going to be
like,
crazy, I imagine.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing that informed my opinion on that was like I've been trying to watch a lot more movies these last last year and a half. And when I started to connect to the idea, I'm like, oh, there are these experiences that are like an hour and a half, 2 hours long that I carry with me much longer than things I spend even 20 hours with. Like, that starts to open your eyes to like how you need to be like fucking laser precise with your storytelling. And there are stories like, I think, Expedition that earns its 30 hours. Like, every step of the way, it's building the mystery, it's growing, characters are dying, you're unraveling it step by step. That earns its 30 hours. But many of these games don't. And these games are just big for the sake of being like $80, $70, please. Like, we're going to give you a lot of things to do here, but is it good? And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why Expedition kind of just really sits in that comfort zone for me in the terms of its structure compared to other RPGs.
It's a vicious cycle too, because I've long fought against playtime as being a truly meaningful metric. Some of the great games of the last few years, in my opinion, were Dead Space Remake and Resident Evil 4 Remake, which are both very tight experiences, especially Dead Space. And all the better for it. You don't need to linger too much. And I think there's a big difference. Not every hour is built equally. If you bought a game like Callisto Protocol, you probably would rightfully be disappointed that it's a little short, right? But you add 2 or 3 hours to it, and it's actually kind of perfect. It doesn't need to be twice as long. It doesn't need to be 3 times as long. So I think Expedition 33, unlike Metaphor, does account for its time better. And I wonder, it's too high impact of a game for it to be too long too. Like, I think the game, it requires a lot of the player in terms of of engagement, and building the difficulty could get crazy. And I assume it does with the special bosses. It sounds like the secret bosses. But there might be a pacing issue there too, where it's like, how hard can we really make this game? Or how long can we make you play like this plateau of difficulty? So they did a nice job with that too. It did always feel like it was getting a little more difficult as time went on. I will say, as a closing reflection, and Brad, I want to hear from you again, obviously, as well, is just, this is a game more than good enough, in my opinion, in my usual run of things, to go in platinum. But because the game does such a poor job of communicating, I've kind of opted to just upload my save to the cloud, delete the game, and I'll new game plus it, probably, because there is new game plus, as I understand. And I assume they'll have a sequel out in 4 years, probably, or something. So I'll just leave it in the cloud, and then I'll probably just replay it again in the future, and it'll probably be on PS6, and there'll also be, maybe not natively, but there'll also have been maybe 1 or 2 patches at that point that might add things and allow it to be more playable. So I've kind of just opted to let it go, even though as I was playing it, I was like, this is an obvious platinum candidate. But I just don't want to like cross-reference things and go on guides and run around just like, And I do some frustrating things for trophies, no doubt, but not that kind of shit.
Would you come back and platinum it if that big update did have the map in it and whatnot? Made it easier to track your shit?
Yeah, but again, I'd probably just wait. and just
you're already moved on.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really know how to play the game anymore. Like that's not that you really need to relearn, but you kind of do. You get to know the rhythms and the
slap you
movements
upside
of
the head if you come in cold. And
Right.
you're like fighting endgame bosses.
It's what stopped me from beating Bloodborne back in the day was, I got almost to the end of the game and then I got distracted by something or whatever. And then I went back and I'm like, I can't play this anymore. And I'm so far into the game that the only option is to go back.
Sure.
So probably a similar situation here. So yeah, my assumption is in the midterm, I'll go back and play it maybe in the coming few years. But Brad, do you have any closing thoughts? We've said a lot here.
I mean, I guess just like for those games you mentioned, comparing it to Final Fantasy, Metaphor, and Rebirth, it is my least favorite out of all those. This did not stick with me after I finished the game. I guess maybe it's just I didn't connect with the characters as much. Gameplay wise, I think it's excellent. The length isn't really a thing for me. I mean, I spent like 50 hours playing this game or something like that because I did a bunch of the shit. So I still spent a long time playing it. It's just the game didn't I wasn't playing this game like I gotta keep playing. I gotta see what's happening. Like that's why it took me like a month to beat this game. It took me a long time, and it usually doesn't take me that long time to beat, especially a Japanese role-playing game. So something about it just wasn't clicking with me outside of the gameplay. I don't know what it is. I can't really necessarily nail it down, but it didn't stick with me. It's not a game I plan on ever playing again. I enjoyed my time with it, but I don't want to revisit it. Like all the other games I definitely want to revisit. Like of course I'm going to revisit Rebirth, and I've played 16 like almost 2 times completely. But something about it, I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm still struggling to find out what it was. Maybe it's just the narrative, and I think the characters, like, at the end of the day, I just didn't really care about them that much. And it's not enough to keep it on my mind as one of my truly great games for me. Like Rebirth, I fucking love Rebirth. I loved all those
Rebirth's
characters.
awesome.
Yeah, it's an incredibly long game, but if like you just mainline that game, it's like 30 something hours.
Yeah.
So it's up to you what you want to do with that game. And I'm looking at Metaphor. Like I spent 70 hours playing that game, I think.
Oh, I had 95.
Yeah, it wasn't that for me. And I did like everything I could before it ran out of time. So I don't know. I guess it's just one of those games where your time could vary.
Better gamer than me, Mr. Brad. Damn.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I usually beat games faster than average people. I don't know why. I mean, I always got that shit. I don't know why.
I'm slower than normal people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I must be considerably slower.
Like I beat Elden Ring,
all these Atlas games that are at 95. Like you're,
I beat Elden Ring like my first time, like 40 something, and I did literally
Holy
everything
shit.
I could. Like I found everything I could in the game.
Wow,
that was like when I reviewed it.
Still,
So,
dude. Damn.
I don't know what it is.
That took me
like
80.
I don't want to brag. I don't want to brag at all about it. No.
That's some skill.
I don't know. To me, it's just like. It doesn't matter the length of the game. It's to me, does it keep me engaged the entire time? I suppose like that. And we're in a very strange situation. I guess a lot of people in our community are just like, time is definitely a factor. Like I always got to move on to the next thing. Like for us, and especially you, Matty, like it's always something on the horizon you got to get to. So time is definitely, and when you feel like your time is respected, it can give you a good or leave a good feeling in there for you. But I don't know. I feel like very on the outside of this game.
Sure.
I guess my opinion on it. I guess Colin is kind of the same boat as me as well. I feel like you and me are definitely the most critical of it.
Yeah, I mean,
despite us loving it so much.
Yeah, I think I like it. Sounds like more than you, but
yeah.
But I don't compare it to those other games for any other reason that those are just touchstone similar.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Of recent years. But,
yeah.
But I have problems with Expedition 33. I don't like it as much as its biggest champions, but I highly recommend it. Like I
like, don't get me wrong. I do highly recommend it. I think it's an awesome game and absolutely worth your time playing.
Definitely.
Easily one of the best games of the year.
I don't like putting scores on things, but it is like an 8.59 style.
Sure.
Excellent cross genre, like going to be appealing to other people. Give it a shot kind of thing.
Totally is.
But yeah, I think we are not in the PS3 era anymore. Like we are eating fairly well at this point with these big, a couple a year, but not to mention what's going on with Falcom and Atlas but just in the Square Enix realm, you're eating extremely well. So there's a lot of competition. It's not like you're dealing with fucking Hyperdimension, Neptunia and Disgaea and shit anymore, where it's like
Enchanted Arms and stuff. Yeah.
Enchanted Arms. So yeah, it's just it's just a comparable thing. It really is nothing against the game itself. And as Matty had said, and we have reiterated several times, it's like, what an impressive first project, especially from a design philosophy, perspective. Real new ideas here. This is a high quality, high caliber, high functioning team. Like, yeah, definitely. I really am curious if they can keep them all together, and I assume they will. One of the good things about the industry, the industry's not cratering, it's making more money than ever, but the way games are made and the studio structure is definitely cratering. And one of the good things is that there are going to be fewer and fewer places to poach these kinds of people from. So usually, like, you would release a game like this, you'd be like the designer, like the lead designer on this game, and 5 companies would be like, we'll give you $400,000 a year or something to come work for us. But there's just not many places to go anymore. And so hopefully these guys just work on themselves. And they're French, so you assume that they're probably pretty good to each other in terms of labor. And hopefully they all made a lot of money. I mean, this is a core team so small and a money made so significant that each of them could be millionaires, depending on the way it all went down.
How they split the profits and what their rev share is looking like, and they could stand to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, like they said 3.3, right? That
was the last number we
in
got,
33 days. I would let's just say it's 3.5 at this point. Yeah, that sounds about right. At $50. Yeah, it's a lot of money, man.
Yeah, their bonuses are going to be sick this year. The Christmas bonus is going to hit different.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm really, really amped for them. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it's like $175 million.
Yeah.
And then that's gross, though. Yeah.
Colin's mathing, everyone.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Like 52 million would go to the platform holders. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at more than $100 million profit. Some would go to Kepler, but everyone's doing really well. Yeah, sorry. Sorry for people that are not watching. I'm using my
crunching numbers,
my old man calculator.
Oh wow, the actual. Oh man, I thought you were like punching it on a screen.
Dude. Holy! No, I love this thing. Yeah, I got it for like $10 on Amazon like a few years ago. When I pay you guys, this is what I use.
Oh hell yeah!
Oh damn!
It's a DS 200 ml electronic calculator, made in China, of course.
Beautiful.
All right,
it'll withstand the EMP blast.
Yeah, well,
that's right.
That'll be shielded. Do we have any closing comments? Otherwise, Matty, do you have anything you want to say?
No, not really. I feel like I got all my thoughts out. Just excellent game. Excited to see more from them. I hope they don't grow too much. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah, I wonder what they could probably go from to in the 50s, I would say, and probably be pretty good. And yeah, it is worth noting because I did. As I've reflected in the past, I did go on Moby Games immediately when the game came out because I really wanted to see how big the team actually was. And obviously they do outsource things, but not that much, and not things that you wouldn't expect them to outsource. They don't have their own mocap studio. They don't have a publishing arm. They don't do their own PR. Like there are certain things that they're out, but the outsourcing is fairly limited, I think, to like maybe as far as game dev stuff to like some animation and art, I think, which is not unusual. And even then I think would bring the team, if you count those people, like 60. So really, it really was a small team as opposed to these 2-hour long, like where it's like everyone that's ever worked at Ubisoft is in a fucking Assassin's Creed credit. I don't know, like how can you even have that many people making the game? How is it possible? How do you make any money?
How can it be?
How can it be? All right, let's get the hell out of here. Boys, I appreciate your time. Glad we got this all sorted out through technical issues. Let's go around the horn and say goodbye. Matty, goodbye to you. Be well. Thank you for your time.
Yes, of course.
We'll see you on Defining Duke, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm glad we got the camera all solved here, so I can do Defining Duke tomorrow. So that's good.
Cool. Thanks again. And Brad, be well. We'll see you on Summon Sign.
Yeah, I'm about to shoot Punching Up right after this.
Oh yeah, you guys go today.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like right after this. No, we're good.
Oh yeah,
I'm
sorry about that. I totally forgot. Okay. Well, that's it. Let's go then. Thank you again for your love, kindness, and support. Hope you enjoyed this conversation, this secondary conversation for Expedition 33. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.